Chapter 306. When Yihua heard this name, he frowned. He had a bad premonition. Zihan said weakly on the other side of the phone, Mom misses you. This sentence directly poked the softest part of Qinya's heart. Thinking about it, I haven't gone back to see Mom for a long time. Sigh. Mom, I miss you too. Qinya sat on the bedside and said gently. Yihua hugged Qinya and gave her a warning look. You just came back for a few days, and you want to go out again. I heard from your dad that the South isn't very peaceful recently. We are worried about you and your sister staying there. Mom, you can be at ease, Yutong and I are very safe, nothing will happen to us. Qinya consoled her mom attentively, however, this damned bastard was still randomly touching my body again. Zihan said faintly, your dad might be stubborn, but he actually misses you guys a lot. His body hasn't been very good these few days, so Grandpa and Grandma have been staying here. Qinya thought about it and agreed. Dad definitely got some news that the South isn't safe, so he called Grandpa and Grandma over. Hearing that her daughter didn't say anything, Zihan held onto her forehead and said, Mom's body hasn't been very good these few days either. If Qinya still didn't go back, she would be unfilial. Mom, I know. Yutong and I will come back in a few days. Qinya said helplessly. Yihua's gaze turned cold. What are you trying to do? Leaving so soon? Do you want to die? Don't come back in a few days. Mom misses you. All right, as soon as possible. Hearing that her daughter agreed, Zihan heaved a sigh of relief and hung up the phone. This is really worrisome. I had to pretend to be sick before coming. Zihan stood up helplessly and poured a cup of water for Chen Xuanzong. Chen Xuanzong thanked her and took the teacup. Auntie, Qinya is just concerned about you. Zihan smiled and asked curiously, Little Chen, have you found a girlfriend? Sigh, it's hard to find a girlfriend. I'm still single. Chen Xuanzong smiled embarrassedly. Zihan smiled, Little Chen, don't say that. With your conditions, you are still looking for a girlfriend. But it's hard to find someone who is sincere. Chen Xuanzong let out a sigh. Zihan seemed to understand something and took a sip of tea awkwardly. Chen Xuanzong also knew that he had said too much. He said apologetically, Auntie, I'm sorry. I'm fine. Then, I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I won't disturb your rest any longer, Auntie. Chen Xuanzong stood up and acted very modestly. Zihan deeply liked him. Zihan nodded, Okay, Little Chen, take care. Oh right, Little Chen, give me your phone number, if comes back, I'll call you. Chen Xuanzong was overjoyed. He took out his name card and said, Thank you, Auntie. Yes, Auntie has high hopes for you. Walking out of Qing family's villa, Chen Xuanzong let out a sigh of relief. In my previous life, I wasn't able to bring happiness to Qinya, so in this life, I will definitely cherish her properly and not let her suffer any harm. Zihan, who was in the house, looked at the name card in her hand. It was made of pure gold, and there was only a name on it. It was engraved in a flamboyant style, Chen Xuanzong. It looked very imposing, and there was a phone number on the back. This young man was not bad. Zihan, who came just now? Qin Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing walked down from upstairs while yawning. Zihan laughed lightly, one of Er's childhood companions. Those two are always making one worry. Wang Muqing poured a cup of water, and that coquettish look of hers was truly amorous. Qinya's father is also someone who knows how to enjoy life. I gave a call just now, she will bring Yutong back. Really? Wang Muqing cried out in surprise. Zihan nodded her head. As long as my daughter says it, she will definitely do it. Just that, there will be very serious consequences, such as being bullied by Yihua. You want to go back? Yihua asked coldly. Qinya placed down her phone and looked at Yihua, then suddenly pushed her hands forward. Qinya pushed Yihua onto the bed, then very domineeringly kissed her man. I, the Supreme Overlord, like this kind of domineering woman, even a kiss can be so awesome. Yihua, I, the Supreme Overlord, can't stand this kind of sound the most, and goosebumps immediately appeared on my body. This is how people behave when they have something to ask of me. Yihua, Yihua asked gravely, how many days are you going to be gone for? Half a month. Half a month. Yihua shouted out gravely. Ever since Qinya awakened that whatever bloodline of hers, Qinya has been wandering around and not returning home at all times. Even I, the Supreme Overlord, am not as busy as you. That is 10 days. Qinya shook Yihua's arm and begged. Yihua said gravely, 1 week. If you don't come back in a week, don't blame me for catching you. Alright, it's settled then. Upon hearing that Yihua agreed to it, Qinya immediately jumped off the bed. As expected, he couldn't agree to it. He wouldn't even give her any benefits. Wasn't 1 more week too long? Actually, 2 or 3 days would suffice. Qinya opened up the wardrobe and prepared some clothes. Yihua, when I'm not around, you should focus on making a baby with Baiji. Hee. Yihua sneered. Also, Zizi has to go to school tomorrow to register, don't forget about it. Qinya reminded. Yihua was very displeased. This is clearly what you wanted to do, and now, you are pushing everything onto me. You're my husband moi, there was nothing wrong with his words. Why are you packing things so early for? I'm going early and coming back early, lest you, the jealous king of the cultivation world, get mad at me. The corner of Yihua's mouth twitched, then snorted, Yihua, will get jealous. You are thinking too much. It's even better if you don't get jealous, let your wife kiss you, be good. Do you think that I, the Supreme Overlord, am a 3-year-old child? Just a kiss is enough. I don't even need to hug. After Qinya finished packing, she booked a flight in the afternoon. Why didn't she just fly back directly? Because Qinya didn't want to lose her normal way of thinking. Just like Yihua, in situations where it wasn't very urgent, he would still take public transportation. Qinya walked to Qin Yutong's room, and not long later, she heard Qin Yutong wailing. What's with big sister's situation? Yihua raised his walking stick and said to Qin Yutong, if your big sister wants you to go back, then go back, don't dawdle. However, Yihua sent a private message to Qin Yutong, look after your big sister well, I will give you meat to eat when I come back. Upon hearing that there would be meat to eat, Qin Yutong's expression changed. Big sister, we haven't gone back for too long, hurry up and pack up. Qinya was no longer an ordinary person. Although she wasn't able to hear their private message, she knew that it was Yihua who was messing around. To actually send a spy to watch over me, what a stingy man. However, Qinya still felt sweet in her heart. Zizi, sister-in-law will be going back for a few days, you have to be obedient. Qinya rubbed onto Yizizi's head and warned carefully. Yizizi nodded her head, I will be obedient. Chapter 307. The more she said that, the more Yihua didn't believe her. At this moment, Donghuang Baiji walked over while carrying her daughter. What are you two doing? Qinya is going back to my parents' home for a few days. Yihua said faintly. Qinya pinched onto Donghuang Li's cheeks. Baiji, please take care of Yihua, I won't disturb the two of you anymore. Donghuang Baiji's face turned red. Aunt Qing, are you two going out to play? Ali wants to go out to play too. Donghuang Li stretched out her hands towards Qinya. Qinya carried Donghuang Li in her embrace, Aunt Ching is not going out to play, I am going back to see my parents. Is that so? According to etiquette, Ollie should also go and see her parents, if not, Ollie would seem to be very rude. Dong Huangli muttered, causing everyone to laugh. Yihua suddenly had an idea. Qingya, you can bring Ollie along to play. Ah. Ah. Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji cried out in surprise. After crying out in surprise, Qingya understood what Yihua meant. Towards Dong Huang Baiji, there was nothing she could do. Dong Huang Baiji glared at Yihua. Daddy is the best, Ollie likes Daddy. Dong Huangli happily jumped down from Qingya's embrace, and not long later, she came back with a small luggage. Ollie is ready, when are we leaving? Everyone, at 3 p.m., Yihua naturally had to send Qingya and his daughter off. Dong Huang Baiji was also by his side, because Yihua was going to be responsible for driving later on. Yihua's driving was like a bumper car. When he saw someone cutting in front of him, he couldn't help but step on the accelerator. When they arrived at the airport, the few people were quite eye-catching. One was a cute little girl, and 3 were super beauties. A lot of foreigners took out their phones and started taking pictures. Such beauties were truly hard to come by in 100 years. Baiji, you two can go back first. I will take good care of Ollie, Qingya said with a smile while carrying Dong Huangli. Dong Huangli said, Daddy, Mommy, you two can go back first. Ollie will take good care of Aunt Qing. Qing Yutong naturally disguised herself as the big sister. She wore her earphones and stood behind the big sister while sucking on the lollipop that Yi Zizi gave her. Yihua silently nodded his head, then said casually, Qingya, I want to ask you a few questions. Papa is going to take a test. Everyone smiled helplessly. Yihua said faintly, do you know what the punishment is? I'm going to give you a kiss. Qingya pouted her mouth. I want to act cool in public again, it's good that you know. Then let me ask you the first question. What should I wear for the class reunion? Qingya laughed lightly, class reunion. I'm not going at all. Dong Huang Baiji covered her mouth and laughed lightly. Regarding Yihua's problem, the 2 women had already discussed about it. Aunt Qing is the best. Dong Huangli knew that she had answered correctly, and thus, Dong Huangli kissed onto Qingya's face. You guessed correctly. Yihua was unhappy. Can't I just enjoy the envious gaze of others? Me and, before Yihua could finish speaking, Qingya said, I only have you in my heart. Dong Huangli's face became red, and she buried her head into Qingya's bosom. Yihua let out a sigh. Seems like I have to think of another method. However, just as Yihua was feeling disappointed, Qingya still tiptoed and gave Yihua a kiss. Soon after, Qingya picked up her luggage and said, all right, you two can go back now. Looking at their backs that were leaving, Yihua touched his cheek. Qingya is really becoming more and more mischievous. Yihua took a glance at his surroundings. Humans, go and exclaim in admiration at my luck with women. There's nothing that you won't be able to enjoy in your entire life. After finished speaking, Yihua hugged onto Dong Huang Baiji who was beside him. Who dares to act cool in front of me? Dong Huang Baiji was helpless. My syndrome of acting cool after smoking is getting serious. Even when I don't smoke, I still have to do it. Baiji, let's go back and make a baby. Yihua was a bit excited. I have to warm up my body first when I go back, in case I break my waist. Dong Huang Baiji sat on the driver's seat and said coquettishly, you should rest for a few days first, don't break your waist. Right now, I am full of vigor, I can even fight for 3 days and 3 nights. Alright, let's enjoy our world together. A layer of redness appeared on Dong Huang Baiji's face. This is a rare opportunity for me to enjoy our world together. Indescribably, Dong Huang Baiji started feeling nervous. Yihua, who was sitting on the co-pilot seat, said faintly, Baiji, don't be like last time, fainting in just a few hours. Yi Hua. Dong Huang Baiji pouted coquettishly. That was something that happened 3 years ago, and you still dare to mention it. Yi Hua turned his head and looked towards Dong Huang Baiji. Baiji, I like how you looked that night, you were very beautiful. Stop messing around, I'm driving. Dong Huang Baiji bit onto her lips. This fellow sent everyone away so that he could make a move on me, what a scheming man. Ha! Yi Hua expressed that he was very happy. I am about to enjoy Dong Huang Baiji's mature body soon. Just thinking about it makes me a bit excited. On the other side, this was the first time Dong Huangli sat on a big plane, and she was very excited. Because they were in a rush, they didn't buy any business class tickets and only bought ordinary tickets. However, since the three of them were sitting in a row, Dong Huangli definitely had to sit by the window to look at the white clouds. Ollie, fasten your seatbelt. Qingye instructed. Dong Huangli hurriedly fastened her seatbelt, then asked curiously, Aunt Qing, Daddy and Mommy are giving birth at home, you won't be angry, right? Qingye went into a daze, then stroked onto Dong Huangli's face. If I am going to be angry, I would have long exploded from anger. Now that things have come to this, there's nothing to be angry about. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji is also not bad, I can accept it, but she is the only one. If it was in the past, I would, but now, I won't. Qingye said with a gentle smile. Dong Huangli nodded her head. She had a look of, I am a little adult, I understand everything, you don't need to explain anything to me. Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. Big sister really changed. Or rather, love has changed both brother-in-law and big sister. Master, the battle to push down brother-in-law has already been delayed for so long, when are we going to continue? Qing Yutong's system asked. Qing Yutong replied while listening to the song, let's talk about this matter in the future, I want to sleep now. In the past, I did indeed have the intention to push down brother-in-law, but after seeing how noisy they were, I didn't want to push down brother-in-law anymore. What's more, with such a strong backing like brother-in-law, what's the difference between pushing down brother-in-law or not pushing down brother-in-law? If I were to be bullied, wouldn't brother-in-law have to seek justice for me? Sister-in-law is a pretty good position. Aunt Qing. Dong Huangli shouted out. Qingye and Qing Yutong both looked over. Dong Huangli pursed her lips. Sometimes, when the two of us are together, if the two of us were to call each other Aunt Qing, the two of us would turn around to look at each other. Aunt Qing, Li feels that I have to change the way I address you. Qingye smiled sweetly, alright, then what should Ollie call Aunt Qing? Mommy Qing, Qing Yutong laughed, and Qingye poked her little sister petulantly. Looking at Ollie's expectant gaze, Qingye spread out her hands, alright, but Ollie cannot call me that in front of Mommy Qing's family. Chapter 308. Later on, if Dong Huangli were to directly call me mother, my mother would probably go into a daze. The gray plane safely landed at Zijin City's international airport. Qingye was carrying on to Dong Huangli who had already fallen asleep, while Qing Yutong was in charge of pushing the luggage. He hailed a taxi and went straight home. I reckon that even the parents didn't know that their two daughters would come back so quickly, and Qingye and Qing Yutong were evidently going to give the parents a surprise. It was already 7:00 in the evening when he arrived home. It just so happened that it was dinner time. Qingye was still hugging on to Dong Huangli who was sleeping soundly, and Qing Yutong was secretly removing her makeup to prevent her parents from chattering endlessly. Ding dong. Ding dong, it was Uncle Fu who opened the door. Ladies, you. Sorry, I was too excited. You guys are finally back. Uncle Fu was also very excited. This was the first time he had seen the two young ladies come back at the same time. This kind of situation was something he had seen in school. Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong greeted enthusiastically. "Two misses, quickly come in, the master and the madams are currently eating dinner." Uncle Fu took over the luggage from Qin Yutong's hands, and Qin Ye and Qin Yutong walked into the house. Dong Huangli was still sleeping soundly. It was normal for children to love sleeping. The two sisters walked to the dining room and saw that the whole family was there. Seeing that his daughter and granddaughter had returned, everyone was surprised. Zi Han and Wang Muqing were overjoyed. They had just made a phone call at noon, and they came back at night. They were really much more sensible than before. As the father, Qin Huashuan's gaze was filled with joy, but he still kept a straight face, seemingly unable to let go of his face. Old man Qing Qingren revealed out a kind smile, and old lady Mei Xuanshuang looked at her two granddaughters confusedly. Her dementia is getting more and more serious. Right now, she seems to be unable to recognize Qin Ye and Qin Yutong. However, this time, when Qin Ye came back, she had the ability to cure her grandmother's dementia. "Yeah, Yutong, the two of you haven't eaten yet, right? Quickly sit down and eat, Mom will scoop some rice for you." Zi Han cried tears of joy. Last time, they parted on bad terms. After such a long time, her daughter had finally returned. But who was the child his daughter was carrying? "Qin Ye, the child in your bosom is?" Qin Qingren asked. Qin Ye said tenderly, "This is my friend's child, I will take care of him for a few days, it can be considered as a warm-up." When Qin Ye said warm-up, everyone immediately knew that there was another one in Qin Ye's stomach. Qin Yutong silently praised her big sister for being awesome. After her bloodline awakened, even her temperament has changed. Qin Qingren seemed to have gotten over it and said gravely, "Qin Ye, this is someone else's child, you have to properly look after him, don't let anything happen to him." "Grandpa, I know." Zi Han hurriedly picked up some food for her daughter. "Don't talk anymore, Qin Ye, you eat more." "Mom, you should eat more too." Dong Huangli suddenly let out a sweet melody. She rubbed her big hazy eyes and asked, "Mommy Qing, where are we?" "Mom." Everyone was puzzled, and Qing Yutong felt that little Ali was here to trick her big sister. "Ali, we're home." Dong Huangli went into a daze. "Aunt Qing, we've arrived." Just now, Ali even dreamed of Mommy. This little Ali sure is smart. Dong Huangli could be seen taking a look at everyone, then standing upright at the side, she shouted out, "Grandpa, Grandma, Uncle, Aunt, hello everyone, my name is Dong Huangli, it's our first time meeting, please take care of me." Right now, Ollie doesn't have any income, so I don't have any money to buy gifts. Therefore, please don't blame Ollie. When Ollie becomes rich in the future, I will definitely not come empty-handed. Dong Huangli felt that she didn't lose face for her daddy. Since daddy didn't come, I am naturally daddy's representative. Everyone went into a daze. This little doll is so polite. If we were to let them know that she is Yi Hua's daughter, they definitely wouldn't believe it. The father has the appearance of the world's number one, and yet, his daughter is so outstanding. Qin Ye, whose child is this? Why is she so obedient? Wang Muqing was very fond of Dong Huangli. Wang Muqing walked over and carried Dong Huangli up. This little fellow is truly too likable. Qin Ye said tenderly, she is the child of a good friend. Dong Huangli loved to listen to adults praising her. Ali promised Mommy that I will take good care of Aunt Qing. Dong Huangli began showing off her maturity again. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong laughed tenderly. Zi Han also walked over and said with a smile, Ali sure is sensible. Qin Huaxian said faintly, all right, everyone, sit down and eat, the dishes are already cold. On the dining table, Dong Huangli placed all kinds of dishes on the adults' plates, causing everyone to be extremely happy. Even Qin Huaxian revealed out a rare smile. This little girl sure is sensible. Seeing that everyone was more or less happy, Dong Huangli said to Qingye in a low voice, "Mommy Qing, you can be at ease, Ali will protect you." "This is the mission that Daddy gave Ali." Qingye smiled very sweetly and said in a low voice, "I knew that Ali is the best. That is for sure." Qing Huaxian placed down his chopsticks and said faintly, "Qingye, Yutong, after coming back, don't go back to the south, that place is very chaotic right now." Zihan also followed up and said, "That's right, I heard that a lot of people died there. Dad, Mom, big sister and I plan to rest for a week before going back. After all, there is still a lot of work to do there." Qin Yutong naturally had to speak up for big sister. "If we don't go back, how could brother-in-law possibly bring me along to act cool? In actuality, what I am worried about the most is that brother-in-law would come over to snatch Qingye away." "Who is this child? Did you, give birth to a child?" Mei Xuanshuang suddenly cried out in surprise, giving everyone a fright. Seeing that his wife's condition was getting serious, Qing Qingren's gaze revealed out a look of pity. "Did grandma's condition worsen again?" Qingye asked gravely, not knowing if she would be able to cure grandma's condition with her own ability. Qing Huaxian let out a breath, then said faintly, "Qingye, don't worry about grandma's condition, Grandpa has already invited Sage Doctor over to take a look at grandma's condition." "Sage Doctor?" Qingye and Qing Yutong called out in puzzlement. Qing Qingren said with a smile, "Qingye, Yutong, the two of you might not know yet, but in the north, there is a sage doctor. His whereabouts are very mysterious, and his medical skills are even more so like that of a god. It is very hard to invite him over even if you have money. This time, sage doctor coming over to take a look is also our Qing family's fortune." Qing Yutong placed down the chicken drumstick in her hand and asked curiously, "Grandpa, how did you manage to invite such an awesome person over? Didn't Grandpa contact an old comrade in arms in the past and finally manage to find out about the whereabouts of Sage Doctor?" Qingye was a bit worried. Could it be that Sage Doctor is a swindler? "Grandpa, what is this Sage Doctor called?" "Song Huang." Qingye and Qing Yutong didn't know Song Huang. However, back then, Dong Huangli almost killed Song Huang. Back then, when Sun Yi and the others went to snatch Xiao Yi's Xianyuan sword, Song Huang was also present at that time. And at that time, Dong Huangli was fiercely shaking Daddy's hand, causing Xianyuan's sword to fly all over the place, and everyone took the opportunity to escape. Chapter 309. At this time, Qing Qingren's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his old comrade. "Ah. Are you saying that Sage Doctor is coming tonight?" Qing Qingren cried out in surprise. "Ha, all right, I got it, thank you." Qing Qingren hurriedly expressed his thanks, then put down the phone. His wife's illness could be cured. Qingye decided to take a look first. If he is a swindler, I will chase him away and try it myself. Everyone, quickly eat your meal and prepare to welcome Sage Doctor. Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. Suddenly, Qingye thought of Dong Huang Baiji. Her voidless realm is a big power in the north. Wouldn't a small sage doctor have to obediently listen to her? However, what Qing Yutong was thinking was different. My brother-in-law is a supreme overlord, what can a mere sage doctor amount to? Even if brother-in-law sneezes, he would be able to exterminate that sage doctor. Dong Huang Li's way of thinking was very simple. Daddy is the most formidable man in the world, there is no one else who can compare to him. After the meal, everyone cleaned up a little and waited quietly for the arrival of Saint Doctor. Zihan was whispering to her daughter. From time to time, she would look at her daughter's belly. She was reluctant to part with it, but she also wanted to abort it. Do you still remember our neighbor who lived in Long and City in the past? Zihan asked probingly. Qingye recalled for a bit, then nodded her head. I still have some impression of this place, just that, it suddenly disappeared afterwards. I am a bit disappointed. However, those were all just the budding desires of a young girl. Thinking about it now, it was just a fleeting moment, because her heart was now filled with Yi Hua. Xiao Qin came over today, and right now, he looks very handsome. Zi Han began praising Qin Xuanzong. Little did she know that her daughter's heart had long since been locked up by Yi Hua. Qingye went into a daze. Qin Xuanzong came. Dong Huangli, who was in Dong Huangli's bosom, felt that something was wrong. This Qin Xuanzong is definitely a man. Even Qing Yutong, who was at the side, also heard her big sister's cry of surprise. Something big had happened. This Qin Xuanzong was an incredible figure. Back then, it wasn't Qin Xuanzong who had a crush on Big Sister. Instead, it was Big Sister who had a crush on Qin Xuanzong. It was just that Qin Xuanzong had disappeared in the end. On that day, Big Sister was even prepared to send him a love letter. He never expected that Qin Xuanzong, who had disappeared for so long, would reappear. Brother-in-law, you have to be careful this time, the enemy is very strong. I'm going to the toilet. Qing Yutong muttered. Qingye still didn't know what her little sister wanted to do and hurriedly shouted out, Yutong, what are you doing? I'm going to the toilet. After saying that, he went to snitch, instantly betraying his sister. Qingye was helpless. Those are all things that happened when I was still in school, and they can't be counted anymore. Besides, didn't I not hand over the love letter back then? Didn't I still give all of my first time to Yi Hua? However, according to this jealous king's personality, he will definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. Although it was a matter of the past, at the very least, Yi Hua was still his childhood playmate. I mustn't let Yi Hua act recklessly. Leisure bar in Longtan City, in the bedroom on the second floor. No matter what, Donghuang Baiji wouldn't be able to escape tonight. Right now, Donghuang Baiji was tightly pressed onto Yi Hua's body, and Yi Hua was enjoying Donghuang Baiji's body. Meanwhile, Donghuang Baiji was letting out an intoxicated moan. Tonight, the same thing that happened 3 years ago is going to happen again. Kissing Donghuang Baiji's cherry lips, Donghuang Baiji caressed every single inch of Donghuang Baiji's skin. As expected of my woman. Ring ring ring. His phone rang. He hung up. Ring, ring, ring. It rang again. Yi Hua, answer the phone first. Donghuang Baiji's face was red. Knowing that she wouldn't be able to escape tonight, Donghuang Baiji allowed Yi Hua to bully her. Yi Hua stood up snappily, and saw that it was his sister-in-law who called him. What a good timing. After answering the phone, Yi Hua said gravely, Yutong, if you don't give me a proper explanation, you will be in for a good time when you come back. Qing Yutong, who was sitting on the toilet, hurriedly said, Brother-in-law, something big happened. Something big happened again. Why do you all like to describe things like this? No matter how big the matter is, in my eyes, it is just a small matter. What matter? Yi Hua asked gravely. Brother-in-law, your love rival has appeared. Love rival? Yi Hua's brows wrinkled. This term is very fresh. I only have enemies, how can I have a love rival? Qing Yutong told Yi Hua about the relationship between this love rival of hers, and Yi Hua's brows wrinkled more and more. This man is actually Qingye's crush when she was young. Damn it, Qingye has been mine since she was young, which man dares to touch her? Should I go and kill that guy right now? Qin Xuanzongs. I have to let him know, don't even think about my woman. Brother-in-law, calm down, don't get agitated. Qing Yutong hurriedly persuaded. What's the matter? Yi Hua's tone was a bit irritable. If that guy likes Qingye, it would be fine, but since that guy is someone that Qingye likes, then I definitely have to kill him. Qing Yutong said attentively, Brother-in-law, big sister knows that I am secretly informing you right now. If you kill that guy, it is a small matter if you die, but I'm afraid that big sister will mistakenly think that you are killing people randomly. Yihua felt that what Qing Yutong said was a bit reasonable. This Qingya has been very arrogant recently. Killing that guy is easy, but the main point is that Qingya would quarrel with me again. No. I am currently in the upper hand. If I were to kill that guy, wouldn't I be in a disadvantageous position again? Brother-in-law, this is actually a very small matter. Isn't big sister's heart currently filled with you, brother-in-law? If you were to kill that guy, wouldn't it ruin brother-in-law's image? Furthermore, aren't there me and Ollie watching over you? Qing Yutong was very naughty right now. She just wanted to see her brother-in-law act cool. If I were to kill that guy in an instant, who would brother-in-law look for to act cool to? At that time, big sister would even say that brother-in-law killed the innocent. Yutong, your analysis is not bad. My image is more important. Properly watch over your big sister. If there is any abnormal movement, immediately report it to me. Yes, I guarantee that I will complete the mission. The two of them were just like the liaison between spies. After placing down his phone, Yihua lost all interest in touching the Empress. Dong Huang Baiji hugged onto Yihua from behind and asked tenderly, "Did something happen?" Sigh, Qingya's secret love has appeared. Yihua was very depressed. On one hand, I want to secretly kill that guy, but on the other hand, I have to take care of my image. I am not a person who would willfully kill the innocent. What I said is a bit fake, I am just sighing. Dong Huang Baiji laughed lightly. There is nothing to be afraid of. I still understand Qingya. The only person in her heart is you. That's for sure. If not, I would have killed my way over right now. Alright, don't be angry. Qingya will be able to handle this kind of matter by herself. While lying on the bed, Yihua hugged onto the Empress and asked curiously, "I have to ask you first, do you have a secret love?" "I do," Dong Huang Baiji said gravely. Yihua was very unhappy. Why do two women have a secret love? Who else can it be? Isn't it you? Dong Huang Baiji hammered onto Yihua's chest with her small fists. You abandoned me for 3 years, and every night, I dream of killing you. Dong Huang Baiji said petulantly. Chapter 310. I know that it has been hard on you. While caressing onto Dong Huang Baiji's body, Yihua consoled. Dong Huang Baiji smiled tenderly. Go and sleep, we still have to wake up early tomorrow morning to send Zizi to register. Yes. Tonight, Yihua didn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. Not only tonight, even if Qingya didn't return, Yihua wouldn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. On the other side, Qing Yutong walked out from the bathroom, and immediately, she was glared at by Qingya. Qing Yutong made a funny face. Mom, I'm going to the bathroom. Qingya said tenderly. I have to explain this matter to Yihua. If not, with the jealous king's personality, he would definitely be preparing to stir up trouble right now. Zihan was very puzzled. What was going on with these two? After closing the door, Qingya gave Yihua a call, but who knew that Yihua's phone would be turned off? Is he angry? Or was he sleeping? Before Yihua sleeps, he likes to switch off his phone to prevent others from disturbing him. Left with no other choice, Qingya could only send a message over. The message was very simple and also very straightforward. Hubby, I love you. Heaving a sigh of relief, he washed his hands and looked at himself in the mirror. Qingya let out a light sigh. She is becoming more and more beautiful. This is truly troublesome. After walking out of the bathroom, Qingya carried Dong Huangli, then rolled her eyes at her little sister. Traitor. Qing Yutong expressed that she was doing this for your own good, and wanted to give brother-in-law a heads up first. Don't let brother-in-law bump into this at that time. If that happens, then the world would really fall apart. Ding dong, ding dong. When the doorbell rang, it affected the hearts of the entire Qing family. Of course, other than Qingye and his sister, there was also little Ollie. The butler, Uncle Fu, was preparing to open the door, and Qing Yutong hurriedly shouted out, "Uncle Fu, I'll go open the door." Qing Yutong wanted to see just how awesome this sage doctor was, to actually be unable to invite him over in all kinds of ways. This sage doctor was truly too good at acting. He walked to the door and opened it. There was a handsome man standing outside the door. He was wearing a white shirt and jeans. He was clean and had a faint smile on his face. Shouldn't he be arrogant? This can't be a fake saint doctor, right? Is this the Qing family? Song Huang asked in a light voice. Qing Yutong asked curiously, "You are the sage doctor, right?" "I don't deserve to be called a holy doctor. I can only treat difficult and complicated diseases," Song Huang said modestly. This girl in front of him was very special. She was also very beautiful. Song Huang had seen quite a lot of beautiful girls in his life, but it was rare to see a girl like this. Originally, Qing Yutong wanted to kill off the other party's imposing manner, but she didn't expect that this sage doctor would be so low profile. "Please come over, remember to change your shoes," Qing Yutong said. This caused Song Huang to go into a daze for a moment. A girl with quite a personality. Qing Qingren and Qing Huaxian walked over, and when they heard that their daughter actually told Sage Doctor to change his shoes, they immediately became speechless. "Yu Tong. What are you talking about? Hurry up and pour some tea." "Holy doctor, my daughter doesn't know any better, she doesn't need to change her shoes," Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. "This sage doctor is not someone that we can afford to offend. In the north, how many families have to give face to him, let alone a small Qing family?" Song Huang smiled, "It's all right. Men were like this. It didn't matter if they met a beautiful woman, but if they met someone they didn't like, then there would be a problem." Everyone laughed dryly. They didn't expect this saint doctor to be so amiable and approachable. "Qing family chief, where is he?" Song Huang changed into slippers and asked curiously. "Sage doctor, please follow me." Qing Qingren brought Song Huang to the bedroom on the second floor. When Song Huang passed by the living room, he saw Qingye and Dong Huangli. "I didn't expect that this Qing family would actually have two such beautiful daughters. However, this Qingye seems to be pregnant." Everyone followed him upstairs. At this time, Mei Xuanshuang was watching SpongeBob SquarePants, clapping and laughing from time to time. Qing Qingren said worriedly, "Sage doctor, do you think my husband's illness can still be cured?" Song Huang walked forward and observed the situation for a while, then said, "Clan leader Qing, don't worry, I can cure him." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and at this moment, Qing Yutong also came over with a cup of tea, then said casually, "Here, have some tea." "Yutong. Be a bit more polite," Qing Huaxian shouted out in a low voice. "The other party is an outstanding and famous sage doctor, it would be bad if they offended Sage Doctor." Song Huang took the cup of boiling water and smiled, "It's all right." After drinking a mouthful of boiling water, Song Huang smiled and said, "Miss Qing is really considerate of this song. I'm afraid that the temperature of the water is more than 100 degrees Celsius. I have never seen someone who can act cool like this," and Qing Yutong can be said to be convinced. "Yutong, get out!" Qing Huaxian shouted out. "This is too unruly. Don't you know what time it is?" Song Huang placed down the cup of tea, then said with a light smile, "Everyone, please go out for a while, I need a quiet environment." Qing Qingren nodded his head, then everyone left the bedroom and waited outside. "Big sister, I have tested him, this sage doctor does have some ability," Qing Yutong said in a low voice. Chapter 311. Sage doctor, it has been hard on you. Go downstairs and eat some desserts. Qing Huaxian walked out of the bedroom and said respectfully. Qing Qingren didn't come out, and was accompanying his wife in the room. On the other hand, Song Huang seemed to be quite courteous, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face as he said, "Then, I will have to trouble you, clan leader Qing." If this was in the past, would Song Huang be so polite? That nose had already ascended to the heavens. Qing Huaxian looked at Sage Doctor's gaze, then looked at his own daughter, Yu Tong, and joy appeared in his heart. Wang Muqing, who was at the back, seemed to have noticed something. Could it be that this saint doctor had taken a fancy to her daughter? That was great news. This sage doctor was a famous person in the north, and there were countless people waiting for him to save their lives. If he married Yu Tong, that would be incredible. Zi Han was a little envious. Her daughter was determined to follow one of them. A woman who owned a bar and gave birth to his child. Just thinking about this gave him a headache. Yu Tong, go and get some pastries. Wang Muqing hurriedly asked her daughter to prepare the food. She thought to herself, you have to perform well. If you are chosen by the sage doctor, you will become a phoenix. But then again, when the two sisters came back today, they seemed to be much more beautiful. It was really strange. Did they team up and go for plastic surgery? Qing Yutong still didn't know what her mother was thinking, and she helplessly answered, then walked downstairs. The group of people sat on the sofa in the living room. Qing Yo was still hugging on to Dong Huangli, and Dong Huangli was currently playing with Su Fuji's lollipop. Dong Huangli's lollipop was even stuffed with the lollipop, then curiously observed Dong Huangli, Miss Yutong hasn't gotten married yet, right? Song Huang asked curiously. Everyone was shocked. As expected of a saint doctor, he was a little too direct. Qing Yo was also startled by Song Huang's straightforwardness. However, Qing Yo was feeling a bit displeased in her heart. After all, there was something wrong with Song Huang's attitude. It was as if Song Huang was telling Qing Ye that if Qing Ye wasn't married to Qing Ye, she would marry Qing Ye to Qing Ye. If Yi Hua were to hear what Yi Hua just said, he would definitely give Yi Hua a big slap. Acting cool in front of me, are you tired of living? Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Aunt Qing is definitely not going to become your wife. You are a toad that wants to eat swan meat. Li's analogy was very appropriate. As Qing Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing said with a tender voice, up until now, my Yutong still hasn't even had a boyfriend, she is very pure. He and Yi Zizi worked together to wreak havoc in the Ying family, causing the two brothers to fall out with one another. Song Huang should be worried about me. And he even called me Yutong Yutong. Song Huang's parents immediately looked towards Qing Yutong. That gaze of theirs seemed to be telling Qing Yutong not to act recklessly. I know, Dong Huangli, who was sitting on Qing Ye's lap, suddenly raised her hand and shouted out. Looking at the child who was in Qing Ye's lap, Song Huang felt that the child was very cute. Little friend, why don't you tell us about it then? Originally, Qing Huaxian wanted to stop Qing Yutong. After all, if a child knew something, they would always talk about it. However, since Sage Doctor had already spoken, it would be embarrassing for Qing Yutong to stop Qing Yutong. Dong Huangli blinked her big eyes and said, Aunt Qing likes to play games, those who are good at playing games can bring her to a chicken dinner. Pfft, Qing Ye couldn't help but laugh. Qing Yutong laughed too. However, the other people's expressions were a bit stiff. Playing games. Those who are seated here are all people who are capable of doing big things, who would go and play games. Ali knows me the best, Qing Yutong said with a smile, then even blew a kiss to Ali. Dong Huangli was not to be outdone and blew a kiss to Ali as well. Song Huang laughed lightly. A celebrity actually likes to play games, this is a bit interesting. In actuality, what Qing Yutong said just now might not be effective, but after saying it like that, Song Huang felt that Qin Yutong was even more extraordinary. Wang Muqing suggested, I heard that there are a few good movies being released recently, you all can go and watch them. I might as well play games. Qin Yutong pouted her mouth. Only by watching a movie with brother-in-law will it be interesting. Not only will I be able to watch a movie, I will also be able to watch them quarrel, and then my big sister will instantly become terrified. Song Huang was also not very interested and said, Tonight, there will be an annual auction at Yuan Linglong, it should be very interesting. It just so happens that I was invited, so I am preparing to go. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong had never heard of this Yuan Linglong before, but Qin Huaxian had heard of this Yuan Linglong before. This Yuan Linglong is incredible, it is said that it is a place opened by a super big figure, and even I am not qualified to enter it. The things that are being auctioned are all rare items, and the important thing is that I will be able to get to know a lot of big figures and expand my circle of friends. If my daughter doesn't want to go, I would like to go and take a look. In actuality, this Yuan Linglong was opened by the northern aristocratic family, Yi family. Back then, when they were fighting over the 9 demons punishing tower, Tang Wushuang even called Yi Shao over to help them, but unfortunately, Yi Shao left in the end. Chapter 312. Qin Yutong was a bit interested in this auction, and she asked towards Qin Ye, Big sister, are you going? Song Huang understood that Qin Yutong wanted to find someone to accompany her. Miss Qin, how about we go together? Song Huang invited with a smile on his face. Bringing a woman like Qin Ye by my side is also giving me face. Dong Huangli pulled onto Qin Ye's arm and said sweetly, Aunt Qin, Ollie wants to go and play. Originally, Qin Ye didn't want to go, because she promised Yi Hua that she wouldn't attend any banquets. Aunt Qin, Dong Huangli acted coquettishly. Zihan also persuaded, just go and experience the world. Qin Ye, Qin Yutong, experience the world. Qin Yutong followed brother-in-law to subduing family. That scene, that was the world. All of Ying family's people kneeled on the ground respectfully, not daring to be disrespectful towards brother-in-law. If anyone dared to cause trouble, they would turn into a pool of blood. That day, brother-in-law was simply too handsome. Meanwhile, Qin Ye couldn't help but think back to the battle at Voidless Realm that day. That scene should be the world, right? After all, that was a battle between 2 big powers, and that scene was just a cheap trick played by the underlings of the big powers. Using Yi Hua's words, when a group of salted fishes were gathered together, they would compete to see who was saltier. Of course, you can also go and see how a group of salted fishes compete to see who was saltier. That kind of scene should be very funny. Unable to withstand Dong Huangli's acting coquettishly, Qin Ye said dotingly, All right, I'll bring you to play. That's great. After speaking, Dong Huangli kissed towards Qin Ye. Qin Yutong smiled, Ollie, you're not good enough. Dong Huangli jumped down from Qin Ye's embrace, then jumped into Qin Yutong's embrace and kissed her. Song Huang didn't feel disgusted, after all, she's just a child. It's getting late, let's set off. Song Huang stood up and said. Tonight's Yuan Linglong auction could be considered as a small gathering for the northern powers. It would be good for me to bring them to experience the world, and it would also allow me to display my abilities. Qin Huaxian instructed his 2 daughters in a low voice, You 2 perform well, don't lose Qin family's face. Especially you, Yutong, take good care of Sage Doctor. The sisters sighed softly. We're just there to kill time. We really don't think that they're that powerful. After that, Wang Muqing also came over to remind her daughter to behave well in front of Saint Doctor and not to throw a tantrum. After everyone left, Zihan secretly gave Chen Xuanzong a call. Coincidentally, Chen Xuanzong was already in Yuan Linglong. 2 men were kneeling in front of him. Aunt Z, I understand. Thank you. After hanging up the phone, a trace of a smile appeared on Chen Xuanzong's face. Because he was about to meet Qinya soon, he was a bit excited and also a bit nervous. However, when he saw the two people in front of him, his smile gradually sank, and his black eyes once again revealed a murderous aura. "I'll ask you one last time. Who sent you to destroy my Qin family?" After searching for a long time these days, most of the assassins from back then were dead. Only these two changed professions, and they were even big bosses now, living very freely. "We really don't know." "Yes, we are very sorry about what happened back then." Chen Xuanzong's killing intent surged as he grabbed out with his palm. One of the men's expression changed. He felt as if his neck was being strangled, and a sense of suffocation surged up. He couldn't help but grab his neck and roll on the ground. Gradually, the man stopped struggling. His eyes were filled with fear. The man kneeling on the side was a little scared. His forehead was covered in sweat. He hadn't killed anyone in many years, so he was not used to seeing such a scene. "Speak, and I'll spare your life." Chen Xuanzong questioned coldly. The man gasped for air and asked, "Are you really going to let me go?" "That's right." The man steeled his heart and said, "It's the Shao family's Shao Yi." Chen Xuanzong frowned. He picked up the wine glass and shook it lightly. "The Shao family is in the north. Why should my small Chen family be exterminated?" "I don't know either. I heard that it's for the ancient godly item. As for the rest, I really don't know." Chen Xuanzong raised his head and drank the red wine in his cup. He clenched his fists tightly. The man's eyes were wide open, and blood flowed out of his eyes. Then, blood flowed out of his 7 apertures. "You lied to me, do I, Chen Xuanzong, still need to explain to you when I kill someone?" "You." Looking at the man in front of him fall, the hostility in Chen Xuanzong's heart didn't lessen, instead, it became even stronger. North Shao family, Shao Yi. Ancient godly item. From the looks of it, back then, my parents knew something that they shouldn't have known, which was why they were killed by Shao Yi. "Shao Yi, you killed my entire family. Even so, I will still kill your entire family." Demon Emperor versus Immortal Emperor. This would be a good show that Yihua would like to watch. On the other side, Qinya and Qing Yutong had already arrived at Yuan Linglong. A clubhouse like this would usually be located in the outskirts. It was clean, and the air was good. Of course, what was even more convenient was that the clubhouse would be able to bury people after killing someone. However, there had never been a murder case in this place. After all, this was the territory of the North Sea family. The family heads wouldn't dare to cause trouble, and the other 4 great families would also give face to them. Of course, there was no need for Voidless Realm to give face to them. Yuan Linglong was located at the center of the lake. This was a man-made lake. Of course, there was also a small island at the center of the lake. The entire building was about the size of a football field. The entire building wasn't tall, and it only had 1 floor. The roof frame was made from top-notch mahogany. The pillars were slightly inclined outwards, and the 4 corners were tall, forming an overhanging eave. The roof was decorated with yellow and green glazed tiles. Looking at the building from afar, it looked very majestic. There was a long stone bridge that was connected to the shore. On both sides of the bridge, there were stone railings and stone pillars, and on every pillar, there were stone lions with different postures engraved on it. Some of the stone lions were hugging each other, some of the stone lions were whispering into each other's ears, and there were all kinds of postures that were vivid and lifelike. Standing on top of the bridge and enjoying the gentle breeze that caressed one's face during summer like this was a very comfortable thing. Meanwhile, there were all kinds of luxurious cars parked at the shore, and it was more than enough to hold a car show. Everyone got off the car and walked onto the bridge, then entered Yuan Linglong. Qinya and Qing Yutong got off the car at the same time. Although the 2 of them weren't wearing any formal attire, their appearance immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. After all, with their appearance, no matter what they wore, they would still be beautiful. The two sisters sized up the place for a bit. This was no different from an ordinary gathering. Everyone was wearing gorgeous attire, and the women were competing with each other's beauty. There were even some men who were surrounded by 4 or 5 beautiful women. Looking at it this way, Qinya felt that Yihua had become much more well-behaved. I reckon that he is currently doing it with Baiji right now. This bastard can't wait for me to come out. When Song Huang appeared, sure enough, a commotion broke out among the crowd. Since Song Huang had the power to decide the life and death of a lot of people, even aristocratic families had to be polite to Song Huang. That is Sage Dr. Song Huang. It really is Sage Doctor. I didn't expect that he would also come today. Who are the 2 women besides Sage Dr. Song? I have never seen them before. Chapter 313. The surrounding people began to discuss spiritedly, guessing the relationship between the 2 of them. From the looks of it, Qin Yutong's change was indeed very big. No one was able to recognize that she was that big celebrity from back then. Song Huang walked over to Qin Yutong's side, then asked attentively, "Are you feeling all right?" Looking at the building in the middle of the lake, Qin Yutong spread out her hands. "It's not bad, right?" Song Huang laughed lightly. This Qin Yutong's appetite is a bit too much. Dong Huangli jumped down from Qinya's body, then bounced and ran towards the stone bridge. Qinya hurriedly ran towards Dong Huangli. "Ah Li, don't run around." Dong Huangli hurriedly ran over. "I'm sorry, Aunt Qing." "Ah Li won't run around recklessly anymore." "Aunt Qing, don't run around recklessly too. Be careful of your little brother." "How did Ollie know it's the younger brother?" "Hee, Ollie can sense it." Dong Huangli rubbed onto Qinya's lower abdomen. This was the connection between their bloodlines. At this moment, a white Bentley drove over from afar. Some people knew who it was when they saw the license plate. I didn't expect Xiao Yi of the Xiao family to appear. Yeah, I heard that the Xiao family was almost finished. I heard about it too, but it seems to be fine now. When Xiao Yi and Xu Nan appeared in front of everyone, everyone was sure that the Xiao family was about to rise again. As long as Xiao Yi didn't die, he would have the strength to lead the Xiao family to the top. Xiao Yi and Xu Nan noticed Song Huang's figure, but they did not talk to each other. Back then, when Xiao Yi was injured, Xu Nan had sought help from Song Huang, but he was rejected. And so, a grudge was formed between them. In the end, Song Huang even came to snatch the Xianyuan sword away from Xiao Yi, and the relationship between Xu Nan and Song Huang had reached the freezing point. However, the 2 of them also noticed that Qinya was frowning slightly. Because when I see Qinya, I will think of that man. When they thought of that man, they would think of Black Robe and those tragic events. But until now, Xiao Yi still doesn't know if the person behind the scenes is Qinya's man or not. After all, the one who wants to collect the dead is the black gown, and above the black gown is that shadowy person. How could the 2 of them be that man's subordinates? But why would they help that man collect his debt? Brother Xiao, it's better to believe it. Xu Nan reminded softly. It had to be said that Xu Nan was smarter than Nangong Sini. So, a man's success depended on whether his wife was smart enough. His wife's suggestion might be the beginning of a meteoric rise. Of course, it might also be the beginning of a bottomless abyss. Nangong Sini's suggestion was destined to be the result, but Xu Nan's suggestion was more pertinent. Although there was a suspicion of flattery, it was all for her husband's future development. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then brought along his wife and walked towards Qinya. However, from everyone's point of view, it looked like this was heading towards Song Huang. Xiao Yi actually went to find Saint Doctor? What do you mean? The 2 of them seemed to have a grudge. Is Xiao Yi planning to lower his head? It looks like Xiao Yi has been dealt a heavy blow and has let go of his previous arrogance. Someone finally taught the act tough king a lesson. Everyone's guess was indeed correct. Someone was the one who taught Wang Xiao how to be a new person. However, that person was indeed not Song Huang. Instead, that person was Death Mage. To be more precise, that person was Yi Hua, who no one knew at all. Most probably, after all of them were played to death, they still wouldn't know who the person was in the end. Song Huang stared at Xiao Yi, who was walking towards him, and his expression gradually darkened. Did this Xiao Yi really dare to attack him in public? He wouldn't dare to do such a stupid thing. In actuality, Xiao Yi's strength was not weak. In fact, his strength had even reached the level of an aristocratic family's patriarch. Song Huang's strength was about the same as Xiao Yi's. However, in the end, Xiao Yi possessed the Xinyuan sword. The deterrence brought about by this primordial godly item was extraordinary. Even Song Huang had to weigh his options. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared at the very last moment on that day. He didn't want to fight head-on, as the gains would not make up for the losses. Of course, Qingye also noticed Xiao Yi. Ever since that day when they gambled, they hadn't seen each other. The scene that happened that night was still fresh in his memory. He had lost quite a bit of money, and in the end, Yi Hua actually got his money back. As for Qing Yutong, she met Xiao Yi once on that day when they were eating fish. At that time, she was disguised as Big Sister, so the current Xiao Yi didn't recognize Qing Yutong. As the two of them got closer and closer, everyone became a little nervous. This was because the two of them had different expressions on their faces, as if a great battle was about to break out. However, what happened next caused everyone to be extremely puzzled. Xiao Yi actually walked past Song Huang. He didn't say a word. Song Huang himself was also stunned. Just now, he had even prepared his speech, but he didn't expect that Xiao Yi would actually walk straight towards him. This damned Xiao Yi, he actually doesn't put me, sage doctor, in his eyes. F***K, this act Wang Xiao still likes to act cool as usual. That's right, look at Sage Doctor's expression, he looks as if he just ate a fly. As expected of Xiao family's family head, this act of acting cool is really good. I don't even give in to him, I only give in to him. However, what happened next caused everyone to be dumbstruck. Because Xiao Yi didn't act cool anymore, and instead, he lowered his status. Because he actually cupped his hands towards a peerlessly beautiful man, and that appearance of his was very respectful. Xiao Yi walked in front of Qingye, cupped his hands and said respectfully, "CEO Qing, I trust that you have been well since we last met." CEO Qing, hello. Shu Nan, who was at the back, was also incomparably respectful. Qingye was very puzzled. I still remember that day when I met Xiao Yi while eating fish. He didn't have this kind of attitude. Although he was polite, he still had that arrogant attitude. And look at now, he completely lowered his status and came to greet me. This. Just what is going on? Qing Yutong was able to guess a bit. It is definitely because of brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is just too charming, even though he is currently sleeping. He still came over by air. 666, Dong Huangli held on to Qingye's hand and sized Xiao Yi up with her big eyes. Dong Huangli didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Even if Xiao Yi directly kneeled down, Dong Huangli would also feel that it couldn't be any more normal. Mommy receives people's worship every day, and Mommy also listens to Daddy's words, which means that Daddy is definitely the biggest, and Mommy Qing is Mommy's best friend, thus, Mommy is worthy of being worshipped. CEO Xiao is being too polite. Qingye said tenderly. She didn't treat Xiao Yi coldly. After all, Qingye wasn't that kind of woman, she appeared to be amiable and approachable. However, if it was Dong Huang Baiji who was here, she wouldn't treat Xiao Yi like that. She who was used to being an empress, other than listening to Yi Hua, she would have a cold attitude towards everyone, other than the people around Yi Hua. Song Huang, who was at the side, tightly wrinkled his brows. How does this Qingye know Xiao Yi? And why is this Xiao Yi so respectful towards Qingye? Strange, this is too strange. Could it be that this woman has another identity? That shouldn't be the case. Although Qing family is rich, their family is still at the bottom of the family, and it shouldn't be possible for them to get acquainted with a person like Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi revealed out a polite smile and asked, CEO Qing's husband didn't come. When Xiao Yi said this sentence, everyone more or less knew what he meant. The reason why Xiao Yi did all of this was because of this woman's husband. If that is the case, who is this woman's husband? To actually be able to make Xiao Yi bow down. Chapter 314. What was certain was that this was an existence that was more pretentious than the tough King Xiao. Song Huang, who was at the side, was also very curious. This Qingye is pregnant, that means she definitely has a man. Originally, judging from the attitude of Qing family, they weren't satisfied with Qingye's pregnancy. However, judging from the current situation, Qing family still didn't know about the inside story. Yutong, who is your big sister's husband? Song Huang asked Qing Yutong in a low voice. Qing Yutong pursed her lips, then said faintly, my brother-in-law, that is a godlike man. If not, how could he have a woman like my big sister? Song Huang lightly laughed. The godlike man was probably just bragging, but he was definitely a very powerful man. Otherwise, Xiao Yi wouldn't act like this. Facts have proven that you should never underestimate your enemy's strength, because when you meet them, it will be too late for regrets. Then, why didn't your brother-in-law come today? Song Huang asked curiously. He really wanted to take a look at his brother-in-law. Dong Wangli pouted her mouth and said, Uncle, my daddy is very busy. A child's words carry no harm. Everyone understood what he meant. Others wouldn't even bother coming to such a place. You all are mistaken. If Yi Hua knew that there were salted fishes competing in saltiness, he would definitely come over to watch the show. In fact, he would even call his subordinates over to watch the show. In the end, he would let them know why they are salted fishes. Qingye carried Dong Huangli into her embrace, then said with a slight smile, he has been rather busy recently. He silently thought to himself, he's busy giving birth to a child with the Empress, this pervert. Xiao Yi took a look at Song Huang, then said to Qingye, CEO Qing, do you want to go in together with us? Xiao Yi's attitude was one of respect, but in Song Huang's eyes, Xiao Yi's attitude was equivalent to Song Huang tearing down his own face. After all, Qingye and Qing Yutong were brought here by Song Huang himself. Xiao Yi, this isn't a good idea, right? Song Huang said in a deep voice. Since Xiao Yi was prepared to slap his own face, there was no need for him to save face. Xiao Yi slowly turned his head and coldly said, I'm talking to CEO Qing, when is it your turn to interrupt? The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became gloomy. Everyone held their breath. Would this year's auction be as dull as the previous years? There would probably be a good show to watch. The tough king had started to lead the tempo. Moreover, he was quite angry. Xiao Yi was indeed very angry. It would have been fine if Song Huang hadn't said anything. But once Song Huang said something like that, he couldn't take it anymore. You actually dared to come and snatch my sword that day. Do you really think that you have a good temper? This emperor has a belly full of anger right now. Qing Yutong felt that she did not come here for nothing today. A good show is about to begin. However, it is a pity that pitiful Zizi, he is locked up at home, and tomorrow, he still has to go and register to be a primary school student, and he missed out on such a good show. But don't worry, I'll take a picture and send it to her. Let her be envious of me, aha. The little wretch would definitely go crazy with jealousy. When Song Huang heard what Xiao Yi said, his face became terrifyingly gloomy. Xiao Yi, you better watch your mouth. Song Huang, I advise you to not provoke me. Otherwise, I will teach you how to save yourself. Xiao Yi gradually released a stream of spiritual qi, and it pressed towards Song Huang. Song Huang couldn't help but furrow his brows when he felt the rich spiritual energy in Xiao Yi's body. Xiao Yi's strength had risen again. With the addition of the Xianyuan sword, he was indeed no match for them. Damn it. Alright, both of you, stop talking. Qingye said faintly while hugging onto Dong Huangli. This sentence that Qingye said softly was very tasteful, to the point that it was somewhat similar to Dong Huang Baiji's style. I reckon that after staying with Dong Huang Baiji for a long time during those few days, a bit of Empress aura had also been infused into Dong Huang Baiji's body. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji's bloodline had also awakened, and this sentence of Dong Huang Baiji's was simply like a huge pressure that made it hard for people to breathe. Everyone who was present felt that Dong Huang Baiji's words were very strange. This woman doesn't have any spiritual qi fluctuation, but the words that she spoke were filled with a sense of majesty, and the words that she spoke were unable to help but make people submit to her. This was the passive power of bloodline. Qing Yutong let out a deep sigh. Big sister is starting to act cool too. My God, when did it become my turn to act cool? This is so painful. In actuality, Yihua loved to see Qingye act cool the most. To be more precise, he loved to see his woman act cool the most. Seeing his woman act cool the most was a kind of visual and auditory enjoyment. Everyone went into a daze for a second, but very quickly, they came back to their senses. Xiao Yi naturally wouldn't say anything, and he didn't dare to say anything either. After listening to what his wife said, he would rather believe that it was true. However, Song Huang refused to accept this. I was actually frightened by a woman, and I have lost all of my face. In actuality, everyone felt that they had lost all of their face, because they were all shocked by what Qingye had said just now. However, when they thought about that mysterious man, they didn't dare to act recklessly. What if I step on a landmine? It must be said that the way of thinking of these people was very correct. If we were to really provoke Qingye today, we would have to wait for the Supreme Overlord's fury. The powers in the north would have to be completely wiped out. Suddenly, from afar, 3 Maybach formed a motorcade, and Xiao Yi's gaze became serious. Tang family's motorcade has arrived. That's right, I heard that Xiao Yi and Tang Wishuang have fallen out. Seems like a big fight is going to happen. Everyone discussed in low voices, and Xiao Yi was also listening to what they were saying. Even now, I can still feel the coldness of that knife that was stabbed in the back by my good brother in the past. However, no one would have guessed that Tang Wishuang's lamp had already been extinguished. Tang Wishuang could be seen coming down from the car. Tang Wishuang was wearing a black suit, and he appeared to be very calm. However, everyone discovered that today, Tang Wishuang actually had a beard. In the past, Tang Wishuang's beard would always be clean, and with a look, Tang Wishuang had indeed become a bit more manly. Tang Wishuang was only wearing a fake beard for the sake of concealing himself. Recently, he had been cultivating his master's cultivation technique, and his improvement was indeed very fast. However, the side effects were also very fast. His chest muscles had actually expanded, his hands had become slender, his waist had also become slender, his Adam's apple had also disappeared, and his face was also slowly changing. Recently, his vocal cords had also changed, and it was reckoned that not long later, his voice would become a female's voice. More importantly, the wound healed, and became, every day, Tang Wishuang would be scared awake by himself, and because of this, he didn't dare to sleep on the same bed as his wives. After getting off the car, Tang Wishuang didn't stop. Instead, he walked to the other side of the car and opened the car door. A man in flowery shorts and a white shirt appeared. He was looking at something on his phone with great interest. He was precisely Tang Wushuang's master, Gue Qingren. The people who were present were very unfamiliar with this man. However, from Tang Wushuang's actions, they could tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. "Master, we've arrived." Tang Wushuang tried his best to pressure his vocal cords, but he was still able to hear the strangeness in Gue Qingren's voice. Gue Qingren raised his head and took a look, then lowered his head back down to read his novel, as if only the words on the phone were able to attract his attention. Tang Wushuang looked around for a bit, and very quickly, he discovered Xiao Yi's figure. The vicious aura within his body unconsciously emitted out. "It is precisely because of this bastard that I became a woman. If I don't kill Xiao Yi in this life, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart." Gue Qingren looked at the phone and said faintly, "Wushuang, if you were to make a move here today, it would be very hard for you to clean up the mess." Chapter 315. Therefore, anyone who dared to fight here, unless they had great connections or were members of the other 4 great clans, was nothing to be afraid of. Right now, Qingye pulled her little sister over to her side. "I feel that this auction isn't that safe, and I have to be a bit more careful." Song Huang walked to the side of the 2 girls as though he was a flower protector. However, some people felt that this saint doctor was just trying to ride on their popularity. "Master, a disciple understands. A little impatience will spoil great plans," Gue Qingren said faintly. Because this line of words just happened to appear in the novel, he just casually said it. Yes. When everyone saw that Tang Wushuang was actually being so respectful, they became even more curious towards this mysterious man who was wearing floral shorts. "Brother Xiao, don't act recklessly. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Shu Nan was also afraid that her husband would act recklessly, so she reminded him softly. Xiao Yi, of course, knew the pros and cons and patted Shu Nan's hand. However, looking at Tang Wushuang who was walking over slowly, Xiao Yi couldn't help but want to directly take out his Xianyuan sword and slash at Tang Wushuang. And when Tang Wushuang saw Xiao Yi, he couldn't wait to let Xiao Yi have a taste of himself, the taste of being a woman. This was life. Brothers of the past would turn against each other and even have to kill each other to eliminate the hatred in their hearts. When Tang Wushuang saw Qingye who was at the side, he went into a slight daze, then greeted, "CEO Qing." Qingye nodded her head politely. The scene immediately went into an uproar. This Tang Wushuang didn't pay attention to anyone, and he just had to greet that beauty. Xiao Yi was like that, and this Tang Wushuang was also like that. What exactly is going on? Gue Qingren didn't greet them and didn't even look at the 2 women. Regarding power and women, Gue Qingren preferred novels. Song Huang felt that he was feeling very apologetic. Everyone was greeting Qingye, and yet, they just had to ignore me. Just what is going on today? Uncle, you can't do it. Dong Huangli raised her head and looked towards Song Huang, then said with a childish voice. Children's words were very deadly. Song Huang felt extremely sullen. He had never felt so sullen before. If he had known that things would turn out like this, he wouldn't have brought them along. Qingye said tenderly, "Ali, you cannot be impolite." "Oh, uncle, you are the best." Dong Huangli responded, then said to Song Huang. Ultimate kill. Being scolded by a child and then given a candy to comfort you, you still had to face it with a smile. How hurtful. The show was not over yet. At this moment, a fleet of 4 Rolls-Royces arrived. The Bai family is here. Yeah, I didn't expect the Bai family to show up for this auction. It's my honor to meet this northern beauty today. What does it have to do with those 2 women and the northern beauty? That's true. The 4 cars slowly stopped. Wang Debao was the first to get out of the car. He opened the car door for his wife like a little brother. Bai Cixin was wearing a white dress, and her pretty face was covered with a veil, as if she did not want others to see her face. If it was in the past, everyone would think that this veil was very mysterious and classy. But now, why do I feel that wearing this veil on my face is so weird? Look at other people, how beautiful are they? Is there anyone like you? You're still wearing a veil. Bai Cixin, who got out of the car, also seemed to feel that something was wrong. This wasn't the case when she appeared in the past. What was going on? A man and a woman got out of a car behind them. The man was Bai Cixin's younger brother, Bai Qi. He was wearing a black suit and had a delicate face. He looked like a pretty boy and was very handsome. The girl who got out of the car attracted everyone's attention. The girl looked to be in her early 20s. She had jet black hair and a snow-white face. Her clear and beautiful eyes were slightly blue, like pure gems. She had a graceful figure and wore a light red dress. She should have been a pure and beautiful girl, but she gave off a sorrowful aura, making people feel pity for her. Someone in the crowd suddenly recognized the girl. I know who this girl is. One of the wives of the family master exclaimed. The family master shouted in a low voice, lower your voice. It's embarrassing for you to be so surprised. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have brought you out. The wife responded, but she still said, Hubby, didn't the Bai family hold a banquet last month? This girl and her mother were there too. What's so strange about that? Actually, this girl is quite pitiful. I think her mother made Bai Qi a concubine. The family master's expression changed. Why? Is it hard for you to be my concubine? The woman stopped talking. Only she could understand the girl's thoughts. What's the girl's name? The family master asked. I think she's called Dongfang Yu, surnamed Dongfang. Everyone seemed to have thought of the surname Dongfang. 100 years ago, there were 6 big families in the north, and Dongfang family was one of them. However, Dongfang family was reported by other big families, and the content of the report was that Dongfang family was secretly hiding an ancient godly item. At that time, the emperor of Voidless Realm was Donghuang Baiji's father. He personally investigated this matter, and as expected, an ancient godly item was found. After all, there was a rule that one could only possess one ancient godly item. Secretly hiding an ancient godly item was a heavy crime, because it was suspected of rebelling. However, at that time, Dongfang family cried out that they were being framed. However, rules were rules, and there was no evidence to prove their innocence. Chapter 316. Although everyone at the scene expressed their pity, this was, after all, someone else's by family's matter, and they couldn't interfere in it. Wife, that Qingye came as well. Wang Debao said softly. Bai Cixin looked towards the front, and her eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She felt that this Qingye had changed a lot. This Qingye is very beautiful. No wonder everyone had such a reaction when I appeared. In terms of appearance, I am indeed no match for Qingye. Debao, go up and greet her. Bai Cixin said. Logically speaking, Bai Cixin should be feeling jealous, but this was the normal rhythm. However, Bai Cixin wasn't an ordinary woman. If not, she wouldn't be able to lead Bai family to this point. It could only be said that Bai Cixin was a very shrewd woman. Although Wang Debao was puzzled, he still listened to his wife's words. That bar owner had always been a mystery, or rather, an enigmatic man. Even his wife had to worry about this point. That's why smart women would do the right thing. Shu Nan was like this, and Bai Cixin was also like this. This also meant that their sixth sense was correct. There were some people that they really couldn't afford to offend. When everyone saw Bai Cixin walking towards Qin Ye's direction with her man and little brother, they immediately gasped. Why are all the big shots greeting that woman? Just who is this woman's man? This man didn't even come to the scene, and yet, he is already in the limelight. Qin Ye didn't recognize Bai Cixin, who was wearing a veil, and she was only a bit curious. People in the cultivation world sure are weird. Mommy Qing, why is this auntie wearing a veil? Is it because she can't see others? Dong Huangli asked curiously. Qin Ye smiled slightly. Li, there are many reasons for wearing a veil, you can't just casually guess. Oh, Li understands. Dong Huangli nodded her head and stopped guessing. If not, she would seem very rude and lose face for her daddy. Bai Cixin could be seen walking in front of Qin Ye and said gently, I have long heard of CEO Qing's great name. Seeing you today, you are indeed very beautiful. After finished speaking, Bai Cixin stretched out her hand. Qin Ye felt a bit awkward. She knows me, but I don't know her, what should I say? If Bai Cixin wasn't wearing a veil, Qin Ye might be able to recognize her. After all, Bai Cixin was also a philanthropist, and Qin Ye had met her once when she attended the banquet. Song Huang said softly, CEO Qing, this is Bai Cixin from Bai family. However, after Song Huang finished speaking, he went into a daze for a moment. Why did I call him CEO Qing as well? His mind was in a mess. He was a saint doctor. Don't forget his identity. Only then did Qin Ye remember about it, and with a slight smile, she said, CEO Bai is being too polite, I don't dare to accept it. As he spoke, he prepared to shake hands with Bai Cixin. Mommy Qing, don't, Daddy will be angry, little Ollie cried out in alarm. Qin Ye's body stiffened. Luckily, my fingers did not touch the other party, and Qin Yutong, who was at the side, was currently taking pictures of the evidence. What a traitor. However, upon thinking of that Vinegar King, Qin Ye smiled helplessly and said, CEO Bai, I'm really sorry, my husband doesn't like me touching other people, sorry for my rudeness. Bai Cixin chuckled. President Qing is so beautiful. If I were a man, I would do the same. As expected of the Bai family's patriarch. He could even resolve such an awkward atmosphere. Everyone was impressed. But at the same time, he felt that it was inconceivable. Because the child said that Papa would be angry. How could such a beautiful woman be angry? This was simply intolerable. Could it be domestic violence? Call the police. Let the beautiful woman be released. Wang Debao was also impressed by his wife. Under such a situation, she was still able to welcome people with a smile. If it was me, I might not be able to hold back from ridiculing her. However, Bai Qi, who was at the back, felt that his sister was being too cautious. This was a great disrespect towards Bai family. Even if Bai Qi was beautiful, he still couldn't tolerate it. Of course, Bai Cixin had her own thoughts. Since her beauty was inferior to the other parties, she had to win in another aspect. However, her magnanimity won everyone's praise, but the other party was different. It would be very rude. However, using Yi Hua's words, there was no need for my woman to be polite towards a group of salted fishes. After hearing what Yi Hua said, Qin Ye smiled sweetly. Immediately, all of the men became distracted. This smile was too beautiful, it was suffocating. My husband is a Vinegar King, he wishes that I could be chained to his side 24/7. Qin Ye's smile looked very blissful. Everyone was able to feel that, to have a woman like this, how many people did you have to help to cross the road in your previous life? Qin Yutong laughed. Big sister actually became a crazy demon showing off her husband. Incredible, I am also going to become a crazy demon showing off my brother-in-law. That's because Daddy loves Mommy Qing, Dong Huangli said. Here comes another crazy demon showing off her father. This family is incredible. Qinya pinched onto Dong Huang Li's little nose. Daddy loves you too. Of course. This was a big family showing off their affection, and all of the single dogs that were present were unable to take it anymore. Dongfang Yuan, who was standing beside Bai Qi, looked at Qinya blankly. In her heart, she was very envious of this woman. Song Huang, who was standing at the side, was very depressed. Thinking back then, when I appeared, how many people would come over to greet me and fawn over me. This year, everything has completely changed. I have truly shot myself in the foot. The gains do not make up for the losses. CEO Xiao, long time no see. Bai Zixin shouted out towards Xiao Yi, but she didn't have any intention of stretching out her hand to greet Xiao Yi. CEO Bai, long time no see. Xiao Yi replied politely. Right now, Xiao Yi no longer had any thoughts towards Bai family. After all, the black gown had already given the order that he wouldn't participate in the aristocratic family selection. Since that was the case, he didn't have any thoughts of going against Bai family. Qinya noticed Dongfang Yuan, who was standing beside Bai Qi, and was very curious. This woman who was standing weakly at the side seemed very out of place. From Qinya's point of view, this kind of girl actually shouldn't appear here. After all, this was a place where people would eat people up without spitting out their bones. This is? Qinya asked curiously. Wang Debao smiled and said, this is my brother-in-law's girlfriend. Dongfang Yuan seemed to be very afraid. Her delicate hands tightly grabbed onto her small handbag and didn't dare to look straight at Qinya's gaze. She lowered her head and her delicate body was slightly trembling. CEO Qing, sorry, this girl hasn't seen much of the world. I have let you see a joke. Wang Debao said apologetically while sighing in his heart. This brother-in-law of mine really wants to bring someone else out today. I am really speechless. Qinya didn't mind and comforted Dongfang Yuan. It's all right, I am still studying at this age. CEO Qing, she is indeed studying at university right now. After she graduates, she will marry into my Bai family. Wang Debao followed his wife's wishes and got familiar with Qinya. Oh. Which university is she studying at? Qinya asked. Bai Qi pulled on to Dongfang Yuan, who was beside him, and said in a low voice, CEO Qing is asking you a question, don't be a mute. Hearing what Bai Qi said, Qinya couldn't help but slightly frown, but she didn't say anything. CEO Qing, I am studying at Zijin University. Dongfang Yuan lowered her head and said while trembling with fear, just like a frightened rabbit. Right now, Bai Qi also regretted bringing her out. She didn't even give me any face at all. Every single sentence she says is filled with death, and she even lowered her head. Doesn't she know that this is very rude? If not for there being a lot of people here, I would have given her a slap. Chapter 317. Senior Sister. Dongfang Yuer slowly raised her head. This word sounds very approachable, which allowed Dongfang Yuer to find a trace of warmth in this unfamiliar place. Hello, senior sister. Hello, junior sister. Dongfang Yuer finally revealed out a trace of a smile. This kind of gathering still has a trace of warmth. This big sister is a good person. Although it was just a small conversation, in everyone's hearts, they didn't think so. It was as if Dongfang Yuer had found a huge backer. After all, everyone present was a smart person. For this beauty to say such words, there definitely must be some other meaning behind it. It seemed like she was telling Bai family to treat this girl a bit better. Indeed, Qinya saw that Bai Qi didn't treat this girl well. Perhaps it was out of pity for this girl. Qinya said a few more words to help this helpless junior martial sister. After all, marrying into a rich and powerful family was as deep as the sea. Bai Zixin also understood what Qinya meant, and said to her brother, Bai Qi, treat you well in the future, understand? I understand, big sister. Bai Qi lowered his head and replied. Seeing that her goal was achieved, Qingye smiled and said to Bai Cixin, to have such a delicate girlfriend, your brother is so fortunate. CEO Qing is right, as the big sister, I am also very happy. Bai Cixin smiled and said. Although she expressed sympathy, Qingye didn't have the intention to interfere, she only said a few words. However, to Dongfang Yuer, those few words were already enough, and she silently thanked this senior sister in her heart. CEO Qing, it's getting late, let's go in. Wang Debao felt that it was about time, tonight's big show is inside, and not outside. Qingye nodded her head, then walked on the stone bridge while holding Dong Huangli's hand. Qin Yutong will temporarily stop filming here, she will continue filming after they go in. This is so interesting, even brother-in-law missed this show. Song Huang, who was supposed to bring Qing family sisters here, was actually following behind the two sisters. Don't blame me for not giving you face then. After passing through the stone bridge, everyone arrived at Yuan Linglong's main hall. The auction was about to begin, a lot of people were still waiting in the main hall. Various family heads were chatting with each other, and there were all kinds of beauty surrounding them. To put it bluntly, in this kind of banquet, there were basically no ordinary beauties, all of them were first-class beauties, after all, they were the family heads' women. However, when Qingye and the others walked in, all the men in the main hall stopped chatting and looked at Qing Yutong and Qing Yutong, ignoring Bai Cixin. These two women are really, really indescribably beautiful. However, the people in the main hall did not know what had just happened outside. If they saw it, they would be even more amazed. At this moment, Chen Xuanzong was among them as well. He was currently building up a good relationship with the family heads. After all, rather than having one more enemy, it was better to have one less. His first glance wasn't on Qingye, but on Xiao Yi, the man who exterminated his entire family. As a devil emperor, Chen Xuanzong really wanted to charge over and slay Xiao Yi on the spot. However, his rationality still prevailed. He couldn't do that right now. By Qin Qin Qin, he Yi of Yi who of Qin 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 became Petrid. When he became P Qin Yu of Qin. Of heart of Qing Qing Yi, became more Yu's beauty, of Fang Yu of. Qingye, since time has returned, I, Chen Xuanzong, will never abandon you again. Li of Qing, Fang Li muttered. Mother of Dong. Of Fang. Dong Huang Li mumbled. In actuality, her eyes were already staring at the dessert at the side, and her saliva was about to flow out. Qingye rubbed onto Dong Huang Li's stomach. You ate so much tonight, you are still hungry. And Li's body is still growing, Dong Huang Li said pitifully. Qingye had no choice but to bring Dong Huang Li to eat, then said to everyone, I will bring my child to eat something. Everyone nodded their heads politely, then began to win over the hearts of the people, especially Xiao Yi. A huge change happened to the family, and it was time to greet those people who left the family. Right now, Song Huang was also surrounded by a group of people who were calling him Sage Doctor. He finally found his sense of belonging, otherwise, if he were to stand together with those two women, his limelight would be snatched away. However, if he were to chase after Qing Yutong right now, he wouldn't be able to put down his face. The two sisters came to the side of the dessert. Qing Yutong casually picked up a piece of cake and ate it with Dong Huang Li. From time to time, Qing Yutong would tease little Li, making Dong Huang Li pout. Qingye. A warm voice rang out. Qingye went into a daze for a moment, then slowly turned around. A tall and handsome man could be seen in front of Qingye, who had a gentle smile on his face. Qing Yutong and Dong Huang Li looked towards the man who suddenly appeared. You are. Qingye asked confusedly. Chen Xuanzong said with a smile, Qingye, don't you remember me? Qingye didn't have a good impression of this kind of man. She said faintly, why should I remember you? Chen Xuanzong felt that this kind of opening was very awkward. However, thinking about it, back then, I was still a fatty, it's normal for me to not remember. In actuality, there were a lot of family heads who wanted to go up and strike up a conversation with Qingye, but Qingye's aura was very strong, and coupled with that mysterious husband of hers, they stopped. However, now that there was a man who was testing the lightning, everyone was still paying attention to him. Qing Yutong still doesn't know about these men. If brother-in-law were to find out about this, wouldn't he break all 4 of these men's limbs? Hey, are you trying to woo my big sister? Qing Yutong said in a joking manner. As the sister-in-law of brother-in-law, I have to look after my big sister well. Of course, when I want to stir up trouble, I still have to stir up trouble. If not, how can my boring life be interesting? Chen Xuanzong looked towards Qing Yutong and was unable to recognize her. After all, Qing Yutong's appearance was off the charts, but her temper was still the same. Mommy Qing, this uncle looks like a bad person, let's ignore him. Dong Guangli pulled onto the corner of Qingye's clothes, and her face was very vigilant. She couldn't wait to call her daddy over right now to beat up this bad person. What Dong Guangli said was right, Chen Xuanzong wasn't a good person. After all, he was a demon emperor, and his hands were stained with blood. However, right now, Chen Xuanzong was very depressed. I haven't even acknowledged him yet, and I am already labeled as a bad person. Qingye carried Dong Guangli into her embrace and said coldly, please leave, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Chen Xuanzong didn't know what to say. I remember that in the past, although Qingye was cold and indifferent, she was still gentle. However, right now, she doesn't seem to be like the Qingye in the past. No. Just now, this child called me mommy. This is impossible. Chapter 318. Long Outyen must have wanted to do something improper to them and forced them to commit suicide. At that moment, Long Outyen, who was sleeping in his cave, sneezed. If he knew that someone had wronged him, he would definitely seek justice for himself. I didn't even manage to touch a single toe before I was snatched away by that pretentious guy. Qingye, she is your child. Grief appeared on Chen Xuanzong's face. This is impossible. How could Qingye be with Long Outyen? This is impossible. Qingye was very disgusted with the man in front of her. What does it have to do with you whether I am your child or not? If I am Mommy Qing's child, if you dare to bully my Mommy Qing, I will call Daddy over and beat you up. After speaking, Dong Guangli even waved her small fist. Chen Xuanzong frowned. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Seeing that Chen Xuanzong still didn't show any signs of leaving, Qing Yutong snorted and said, Brat, why aren't you leaving yet? You don't know anything about my brother-in-law. If he were to find out about this, you're done for. Qingye also persuaded coldly, Mister, I'm warning you for the last time, it's best for you to stay away from me, I don't want my husband to get angry. Chen Xuanzong's face was filled with astonishment, and he couldn't help but take a small step back. Why did things turn out like this? Qingye is actually protecting Long Outyen like this. That Long Outyen isn't a good person. He's a womanizer, doesn't attend to his proper duties, and is always on the gossip news. This is definitely a facade, and Qingye said it on purpose. That's right, after all, Qingye is a kind-hearted person. CEO Qing, is there anything I can help you with? At this moment, Xiao Yi slowly walked over and said respectfully. Looking at Xiao Yi who was just inches away from him, Chen Xuanzong's body trembled slightly. He nearly couldn't help but make his move. No need, CEO Xiao. Qinya said faintly. Xiao Yi glanced at Qin Xuanzong. It was a look of warning. Then, he left with Xu Nan. It was Xu Nan who suggested coming over. Qin Xuanzong, what are you doing? Suddenly, a man called out to Qin Xuanzong. Qinya went into a daze for a moment. After recalling what her mother had told her, she asked in confusion, You are Qin Xuanzong? Fatty Qin. Qin Yutong thought to herself that the situation was bad. Dong Guangli pouted her small mouth, looking just like an unhappy baby. Looking at Qinya's pleasantly surprised expression, Qin Xuanzong's disappointment disappeared. He knew that this was just a facade. It's me, the fatty from back then. As he spoke, Qin Xuanzong stretched his cheeks wide to prove that he was a fatty in the past. Qinya was also rather surprised. Fatty, I didn't expect to see you here. It has been almost 10 years since we last met, you have lost a lot of weight, and you have also become more handsome. You flatter me. In the past, I was just fat. Qin Xuanzong said embarrassedly. He was in a great mood. Yutong, what's wrong? Do you really not recognize me anymore? Qin Xuanzong smiled at Qin Yutong. Qin Yutong pouted her mouth, disappeared for so many years, where did you go to fool around? First, I have to ruin this person's impression in my sister's heart. Then, my sister won't remember our old relationship. In actuality, Qin Yutong was thinking too much. Right now, Qinya was only having the attitude of an old friend, and would not betray Yihua. In Qinya's heart, Yihua had long been irreplaceable, no matter what happens. My family underwent a huge change. Back then, I didn't even have the time to greet them before I left. I've been abroad for the past few years. I've only returned recently. Qin Xuanzong explained. Qinya silently thought back to that year. It was fortunate that you went overseas, if not, I definitely wouldn't have been able to see Yihua. If Qin Xuanzong knew what Qinya was thinking, would he feel despair? How have you been recently? Qin Xuanzong asked with a gentle voice. That warm greeting was something that everyone could understand. Without waiting for Qinya to reply, Dong Guangli snorted, My daddy and mommy are very good, if you still don't leave, Ali will get angry, and if Ali gets angry, the consequences will be very serious. Ali is serious. Qinya knew that her child was speaking up for her father, thus she said tenderly, Ali, this is mommy's old friend, don't be angry. Ali doesn't like it. Woo! Dong Guangli hugged onto Qinya and acted coquettishly. Qin Yutong, who was behind Dong Guangli, gave Ali a thumbs up, and little Ali blinked her big eyes. The two of them cooperated very well. Qin Xuanzong wanted to confirm this matter and asked gravely, Qinya, is she really your child? Qinya liked Dong Guangli very much, and even more so, Qinya treated Dong Guangli as her own daughter. Yes. Looking at Qinya's blissful smile, Qin Xuanzong felt as if he was struck by lightning. How could Qinya and Long Outyan live together happily? They even had a child. Qin Yutong even spoke up for Long Outyan. After a long while, Qin Xuanzong said, Qinya, is he good to you? Dong Guangli began answering, Of course daddy is good to mommy, after all, there is a baby in mommy's stomach. A second child. She even gave birth to a second child. As a demon emperor, Qin Xuanzong felt a bit despair. Mommy said before, after I give birth to a little brother, I want to give daddy another baby. Dong Guangli added, causing Qinya to feel a bit embarrassed. Give birth to another baby. This sentence was like a thunder exploding within Qin Xuanzong's mind. This Long Outyan definitely threatened Qinya, if not, Qinya wouldn't be acting like this. Qinya, he is a swindler. Qin Xuanzong advised. Don't be fooled by Long Outyan's sweet words. Qinya wrinkled her brows. If not for the fact that they were old friends, she would have already flipped out. Chinya said faintly, "Fatty, he is my husband. Even if he lied to me, I am willing to do so." "But, Fatty, don't say anymore, otherwise, we can't even be friends anymore." Chinya shouted out coldly. This had already touched Chinya's bottom line. Qin Yutong, who was at the side, secretly took a photo and sent her big sister's attitude to brother-in-law. This way, brother-in-law shouldn't be worried anymore. "Chinya, do you like him that much?" "Actually, Dong Wangli couldn't take it anymore and said, "Uncle, don't think that Ali's temper is good, my mommy only loves daddy." Originally, Chinya still wanted to reminisce about the past with her old friend, but when she discovered that Qin Xuanzong wasn't the fatty from back then, she didn't have the mood to continue chatting. "Ali, let's go over there and eat French fries, okay?" Dong Wangli agreed happily. "But Ali, you have to eat less, if not, you will have a stomachache." Chinya revealed a gentle smile, causing Dong Wangli to kiss Chinya. "Mommy is beautiful, Mommy Qing is also beautiful," Li feels that she is too blessed. While carrying Dong Wangli, Chinya walked to the other side. Everyone at the scene couldn't help but open up a path for Chinya. Perhaps, even they themselves didn't know why they had to open up a path, but they felt that they had to open up a path. This point alone was sufficient to prove that Chinya's aura was becoming stronger and stronger. Qin Yutong patted onto Qin Xuanzong's shoulder, then said earnestly, "Fatty, some things are already in the past, you don't have to keep it in your heart anymore." "But, I can't let it go," Qin Xuanzong said with red eyes. Qin Yutong persuaded Qin Xuanzong one last time, "Right now, you are already half a step into the abyss, it is still not too late for you to go back. If not, you will definitely die without an intact corpse. I am not joking with you, my brother-in-law's strength is something that you will never be able to imagine." After finished speaking, Qin Yutong turned around and followed after her big sister's footsteps. Chapter 319. Looking at Dong Wangli who was eating fries, Chinya said tenderly, "Ali, you can't eat too much." Li understands." Qin Yutong said quietly to her big sister, "Big sister, it seems like this Qin Xuanzong is preparing to pursue you. Alright, don't say any more, if your brother-in-law were to find out, he would definitely get mad." Chinya knew Yi Hua's personality very well. Although this Qin Xuanzong was disrespectful towards her, they were still friends. Even if she didn't give him face, she still had to give him face. "But I have already sent it over," Qin Yutong said pitifully as she waved her phone. Dong Wangli said exaggerately, "Daddy is going to get mad." Chinya pinched onto her little sister's ear, "You traitor. Big sister, be gentle, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts." Just as they were fooling around, two people walked in from the entrance. One was a robust middle-aged man, and the other was a man with a graceful bearing. The middle-aged man had a square face and sideburns. There was a scar on his cheek that looked very sinister, like a wriggling centipede. It was precisely because of this appearance that people naturally feared him. The man at the side was much more delicate and handsome. He was waving a folding fan in his hand and dressed up like an ancient romantic scholar, attracting the attention of the unmarried women present. When everyone saw these two people, they went into a daze for a moment. Some people didn't recognize them, but some people recognized them. Those who recognized them cupped their hands and shouted, "Chu family head." At this moment, some people started discussing. "Hey, is there a need to be so respectful towards a family head? Lower your voice. This is one of the 5 aristocratic families, Chu family." "Ah, Chu family." Everyone hurriedly cupped their hands and greeted respectfully. Even Xiao Yi and Bai Cixin cupped their hands and greeted respectfully. After all, this was etiquette. Of course, there were still some people who didn't do it. For example, Gue Qingren was sitting at the side eating sunflower seeds and reading novels. Qing Yutong was even more so. What does an aristocratic family count as? Even big shots have to follow brother-in-law's orders. Bai Qi bowed his body and took a look at Dongfang Yuan, who was at the side, then shouted out, Dongfang Yuan, do you still want me to teach you how to bend your waist? In actuality, Dongfang Yuan had already learned from others, but Bai Qi was just nitpicking and intentionally making things difficult for Dongfang Yuan. Bai Qi just wanted to vent his anger, who asked her to make him lose face just now. As the two of them walked over, all the clan leaders tried to curry favor with them. It wasn't easy for an aristocratic family to appear here, so they had to have a good chat with them. Father, I'll go eat something. As Chu He's eldest son, Chu Bai enjoyed a halo that others couldn't obtain. Did Chu He not know his son's intentions? Since he was here today to hunt for beauties, he just let him be. Perhaps others didn't know, but Chu Bai had a fetish. Others liked virgins, but he liked married women. Other than the main wife, all the concubines were like this. However, Chu Bai didn't snatch it by force. Instead, he stepped in and slowly obtained it. He enjoyed that thrill very much. You don't understand the world of powerful people. They seek excitement. Chu Bai waved his fan and walked around the hall, sweeping his gaze across the group of women. He didn't care about the average ones anymore. Recently, he had been infatuated with the high and mighty women, and conquering them gave him a sense of accomplishment. As for those little girls, he was really not interested. How could he be as interesting as someone else's wife? Pervert. Mommy Qing, Ollie can't eat anymore. Dong Huangli rubbed onto her plump belly and said pitifully. She seemed to be a bit unwilling to not finish eating all of these. Qingye took out a napkin and carefully wiped Dong Huangli's mouth. If you can't eat anymore, then don't eat anymore. But Ali recently learned a poem. Dong Huangli began to show off. Qingye and Qing Yutong were very curious as well. What poem? Hoeing rice at noon. Dong Huangli said. What was the next sentence? I forgot. This is so embarrassing. Ollie has lost face for daddy. I originally wanted to flaunt my culture a bit. Seeing how Ollie was stuttering, Qingye and Qing Yutong couldn't help but laugh. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Next time, I will come and show off after I finish reciting the poem. Sweat drips into the soil. Who would know that every grain of rice on the plate is bitter? Chu Bai could be seen lightly waving his fan and speaking leisurely. That confident smile of his seemed to be saying that what I said was correct, right? Dong Huangli became unhappy. I was supposed to show off to you. Uncle is so amazing, you actually know how to recite children's poems. Dong Huangli shouted out. She wanted to let everyone know that this uncle of hers was reciting children's songs at home. Chu Bai paused for a moment. What a sharp little kid, so eloquent. However, my target is not you, but the two women beside you. In order to prove that he was talented, Chu Bai coughed lightly and said in a low voice, others laugh at me for being too crazy. Dong Huangli was very unhappy. Since you are destroying Ali's stage, Ali is going to destroy your stage. Dong Huangli could be heard saying with a childish voice, I'm laughing at him for saying that he is right. Puff. Chu Bai almost choked on his own saliva. Qingye and Qing Yutong laughed so much that they were about to cramp up. When did Ali become so mischievous? Didn't he learn it from his father? Everyone in the surroundings heard what Dong Huangli said. Originally, I thought that Dong Huangli is just a bronze king, but it turns out that Dong Huangli is actually a king. However, he didn't dare to laugh out loud. After all, he was the son of an aristocratic family. However, he still couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh lightly. Chu Bai felt very awkward, but he still had to maintain his poise. He could not lose face in front of a beauty, or else this first impression would be gone. However, if he wanted to woo these two women, he had to start with the children. Little friend, you are very awesome. Chu Bai smiled and praised. Dong Huangli snorted, of course, Ali is very formidable. Ali, do you want to play with uncle again? Don't think that Chu Bai was really playing with the children. This was a form of interaction. He wanted the two beauties to lower their guard so that he could take advantage of the situation. Dong Huangli was Yi Hua's child, when had she ever been a coward? Alright, Ali will let uncle start the conversation. Dong Huangli braced herself and said. Even if Qingye wanted to persuade the child, it was already too late. Qingye could only watch the child perform. Qing Yutong immediately captured the moment when Ali was acting cool. The crowd was attracted over as well. A battle between a junior king and a descendant of an aristocratic family. This was going to be interesting. Chu Bai thought for a moment. He couldn't make it too difficult, or others would think that he was bullying a child. Whoosh! Chu Bai opened his folding fan and said in a graceful manner, everyone has died since ancient times. Everyone was in an uproar. This was too difficult for children. The moonlight in front of the bed was more or less the same. Qingye also felt that this was a difficult situation. Dong Huangli was very puzzled. Since ancient times, who doesn't have sh*t? How could there be such a poem? How strange. However, if I am unable to continue the conversation, while losing face for Ali is a small matter, losing face for my daddy is a big matter. When everyone saw that Ali was frowning and seemed to be thinking, they couldn't help but become worried. This Chu Bai is too shameless, he is still acting so complacent over there. Dong Huangli's big eyes could be seen shining as she stood on the chair and shouted out, "Thou shalt not use paper when shitting." At this moment, everyone became quiet as they looked dumbfoundedly at the little fellow who was standing on the chair. The little fellow had heard the word sh*t, and then improvised a line. It was right, and it rhymed. Chapter 320. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Qingye and Qing Yutong also didn't expect that Ali would actually be able to say such a sentence, and after being dumbfounded for a moment, they couldn't help but laugh tenderly. It was clear that Ali didn't know, but she still answered based on what she knew. Moreover, she even scolded Zhao Fu. It seemed that Ali was quite vengeful. Chu Bai felt as if he had eaten sh*t. He had actually been looked down upon by a little kid. Although his answer was wrong, it was still another kind of sublimation. He had to say it, and he had to say it in another way. Little fellow, this young master's talent is not something you can understand. Looking at the strange look on Chu Bai's face, the crowd could not help but sigh as they felt that the son of an aristocratic family had not given up and was going to continue fighting with a kid. If he won, he would be bullying the weak. If he lost, he wouldn't even be able to win against a child. He wouldn't be able to please either side and would be digging his own grave. Right now, Chu Bai was already in a difficult position, unless Dong Huangli took the initiative to step aside. However, that was impossible. After a while, Chu Bai's eyes lit up. He waved his folding fan and slowly said, "If you don't have toilet paper." Damn! This son of an aristocratic family really dared to come. Everyone couldn't help but look at the little fellow. If it was a match, it would definitely be the highlight of today's auction. The little fellow had used a poem to slap the son of an aristocratic family. It was too interesting. Dong Huangli raised her head and looked towards Mama Qing and Aunt Qing. Qingye and Qing Yutong had a helpless look on their faces. It wasn't that Mommy Qing didn't want to help Ali, it was that Mommy Qing didn't know how to answer Ali's question. Seeing that even Dong Huangli had asked for help, everyone felt that even though they were defeated, it was still an honor. As for Chu Bai, he was a little smug. How was it possible for a little brat to defeat him? From the looks of it, Dong Guangli had indeed angered Chu Bai, causing Chu Bai to forget about his original mission. His mission wasn't to spar with a child, but rather, to strike up a conversation with a beauty. Dong Guangli pouted her mouth and looked at Chu Bai unwillingly. Calm down, don't be reckless, Ali will definitely think of something. After a while, everyone felt that Ali couldn't match it, so Xiao Xiao didn't say anything. Little guy, what else can you say? Chu Bai smiled. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong inwardly scolded him for being shameless. Bullying little children, Ali quickly beat him up. Dong Guangli could be seen snorting coldly, then said, if that's the case, Ali, you will have to use your fingers. At this moment, the air froze. If you don't have toilet paper, you can only use your fingers. Ha ha ha. The whole audience immediately burst into laughter. This little guy was amazing, too amazing. They matched each other neatly, rhyming perfectly, and the ending notes connected pleasantly. Hi! Little prodigy. She even reached the point of scolding people without using dirty words. Qin Yutong, who was filming the video for Ali, was a bit stupefied, and Qin Ye was even more so. This little fellow is truly becoming more and more fond of Ali. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong could be seen giving Ali a sweet and fragrant kiss, causing everyone to feel extremely envious, and they all wished that they could become little fellows. Dong Guangli even raised up her chin. Quickly come and praise Ali. Ali will accept your praise. However, Chu Bai put away his folding fan. He was so angry that his lips were trembling. He couldn't tolerate it. He had been sliced by a little kid. He had to think of a way to regain his face. Use his status to pressure me. Too low level. No. He still had to use culture to crush the other party and let the children know that he, the son of an aristocratic family, was not to be trifled with. Little friend, you're amazing. Why don't we try something a little more difficult? When Chu Bai said this, everyone felt that he was shameless. He wanted to increase the difficulty. The previous one was already difficult enough, but the little fellow had thought for so long. Qin Ye's expression sunk. I will let Ali play with Ali, but if others bully Ali like this, I, as his mother, will not allow it. Qin Yutong is the same as well. If you want to bully my Ali, you have to ask me, Aunt Qing. System, give me a big sword. As the child of a supreme overlord, Dong Guangli's bloodline carried the gene of never admitting defeat. Towards other people's challenges, Dong Guangli would not cower, and would only bravely advance forward. Mommy Qing, Aunt Qing, let Ali do it. Dong Guangli put on the appearance of a little adult, which made people feel that Dong Guangli was very cute. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong took a look at each other. After thinking for a bit, they decided to let Ali give it a try. Who knows, Ali might even be able to give them a pleasant surprise. If this man dares to take a yard after taking an inch, Qin Ye will definitely not let him off. Dong Guangli could be seen saying to Chu Bai, Uncle, this kind of competition is too dull, do you want to give it a little something? Something. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong went into a daze. When did Ali learn such words? Needless to say, it must be her father who taught her. Qin Ye decided that this time, when she goes back, she will have a good talk with Yi Hua. You don't have to interfere with the education of Ali anymore. Look at what you have taught Ali to become, to actually dare to make a bet with other people. Ali is only 3 years old. When he grows up, wouldn't he be gambling with other people? The surrounding people were clearly stunned by Dong Guangli's attitude. This little fellow is awesome. This was the first time he had seen a child angrily rebuking the son of an aristocratic family. Chu Bai was very confident. With a swoosh, he opened his folding fan again. Ollie, whatever you want to bet, Uncle will bet with you. Alright, if Uncle loses, you have to recognize Ollie as your big brother. Ollie will teach you how to comb your hair in the middle. Puff, everyone present burst into laughter. If you recognize me as your big brother, I'll teach you how to comb your hair in the middle. This kid also watches TikTok. Chinya let out a sigh. After this incident, I will definitely uninstall all of my TikTok from my phone. I can't let Ollie watch TikTok anymore. However, this time, Chinya had wrongly blamed TikTok. Ollie had learned TikTok from Ligu. Alright. If Ollie loses, you have to be my little brother. Chu Bai wasn't greedy. It didn't matter if he accepted a child as his underling. The important thing was that he would be able to come into contact with two great beauties. Alright. It's a deal, pinky promise. Dong Huangli stretched out her pinky. Chu Bai really walked over and hooked it. He even stamped it. Chu Bai. What are you doing? He suddenly walked out from the crowd. Beside him was actually the Yi family's patriarch, Yi Shao. He had just walked over to discuss some matters with Yi Shao, but when he came out, he saw everyone crowding over here. Sure enough, it was his son again. Chu Bai looked at his father without a hint of fear. Father, you don't have to worry about this. What's there that I don't need to care about? He was confused. A family head beside him recounted the situation. He felt embarrassed when he heard that. His eldest son liked to make himself look like a scholar. Apart from that hobby, he always claimed to be a cultured person and was different from them. You don't even have half a cart full of knowledge with the amount of knowledge in your stomach. Do you think I don't know? The main target is even a little kid, and if I lose, I still have to recognize the little kid as my big brother. You may be shameless, but your father is. Old Chu, this little Bai is just playing around. Yi Shao said with a smile. Play. If that's the case, you are looking down on Dong Huangli too much. Uncle, if your son loses, he wants to recognize me as his big brother, are you okay with that? If Dong Huangli doesn't even have this bit of foresight, then she would be letting down the power of her bloodline. When Dong Huangli said that, everyone froze. That's the boss of an aristocratic family. A person who can decide a person's life and death with just a single sentence. Chapter 321. I didn't expect that Ollie would have such a talent. From the looks of it, in the future, the three of us can form a team and go out to do big things. As an aristocratic family, if we make things difficult for a child in this kind of situation, we will lose a lot of face. Little friend, that uncle is just joking with you, don't take it seriously. He squeezed out a trace of a smile. Bastard son, coming to trouble me at this time. I took it seriously. Dong Huangli said while pouting her mouth. I took it seriously too. Chu Bai responded. I am a talented young master, how can I possibly lose? Yi Shao laughed lightly. Old Chu, your son's bearing is extraordinary. He wished that he could beat this fellow to death. If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have brought him out today. Chu Bai, you're on your own. After finished speaking, he left angrily. Yi Shao took a look at Chinya, then turned around and left. Not every man likes beautiful women, perhaps, they just admire beautiful women. Seeing that his father had left, Chu Bai laughed lightly. All right, no one can disturb us now. Uncle, your father is angry, can you make the decision? Dong Huangli asked curiously. This question of yours is so awkward. Chu Bai knocked on his chest with his folding fan, then said with his mouth slightly raised, Uncle's life is my own decision. Then, Ali can be at ease. Everyone became speechless. Why do we have a strange feeling? This little fellow has already dug a pit, and the son of an aristocratic family is currently digging a pit. These people guessed correctly, Dong Guangli has indeed dug a pit. As the representative of the buried love family, Dong Guangli has already started taking in subordinates. And when Yihua was Li's age, who knows where he was playing with mud. The student has surpassed the master. Using Dong Guangli's words, Daddy has so many subordinates, Ali has to make preparations as well. Dong Guangli could be seen smiling confidently. This smile made Chu Bai feel quite pressured. Where does this little brat's confidence come from? Dong Guangli is not fighting alone. Because there is a think tank behind her. Dong Guangli shouted out silently in her heart, Uncle Wei, are you ready? Ali is about to compete. If I lose, I will have to become someone else's subordinate. Far away, in a rented house in Long An City, Wei Chang received a message from Little Honorable, Uncle Wei is ready. The small living room was filled with people. Lai Gu brought along Yiran, Wen Xia, and Bai Xiaozhen, a family of 4. Absolute Heaven had rushed over from Zijin University. There was also Death Mage and Sun Fang. The Green and Red brothers died, and of course, Zi Shan also died. Of course, there was also Wei Chang and Tang Wei, only Yi Zizi wasn't present. The pitiful Yi Zizi didn't have anyone to play with her anymore. All of these people were helping Dong Guangli to answer the question. Thus, Chu Bai didn't know what kind of group he was facing at all. In actuality, Dong Guangli was the one who said the first sentence. However, from the moment when she said that everyone would die, it wasn't the one who said it. This matter was too difficult for Dong Guangli, who was not even 3 years old yet. At that time, Dong Guangli was also very anxious, and she was not allowed to ask for help at the scene. Thus, Dong Guangli, who was very anxious, started asking for help in her heart, hoping that the heavens would take pity on Dong Guangli and quickly let Dong Guangli think of something. Although the heavens didn't appear, Wei Chang was able to sense Dong Guangli's cry for help. This was also one of Wei Chang's little thoughts. He was worried that Little Honorable would get hurt, so he specially created a secret technique. As long as Little Honorable asks for help in her heart, he would be able to receive it and immediately go and rescue her. Don't look at how young my daughter is. If she were to really get into a fight, that bunch of deviant flames of hers would be able to make the enemy blush with shame. Wei Chang, who was just about to sleep, sensed it and hurriedly asked about the situation. Immediately, he let out a breath of relief. However, the question that came next caused Wei Chang to have a headache. If it was an ordinary poem, Tang Wei, who was a university student beside him, would definitely know about it. However, Little Honorable's request was not ordinary, and this caused Tang Wei to be stumped. Wei Chang had no choice but to immediately gather everyone. Furthermore, it could be described as extremely urgent. At this time, everyone was more or less preparing to sleep. Even Death Mage was wearing a nightgown. Lai Gu and Absolute Heaven were also wearing a nightcap, as expected of the saying, strength comes from having more people. The first person was Lai Gu's wife, Yiran, and the second person was the previous Cloud sect master, Sun Fang. This was also the reason why Dong Guangli had to think for a very long time when she was answering the question, because she was waiting for the answer. Right now, everyone's brows were tightly wrinkled as they prepared to answer the next question. The foolish Chu Bai still didn't know that the little fellow on the other side was secretly cheating, and that there was even a world-destroying team helping him from behind. Don't look down on Dong Guangli, you will never know just how powerful the little fellow's background is. Chu Bai's brows were solemn. This time, I won't go easy on Dong Guangli. Opening up his folding fan, Chu Bai said with a smile, what is there to be happy when we part? Everyone was shouting out that Dong Guangli was shameless. I can't even follow up with this kind of poem, and I still have to count on a little kid. Chu He, who was standing not far away, shook his head. This is truly throwing away Chu family's face, to actually be so serious towards a little kid. Qing Ye and Qing Yutong had unhappy expressions on their faces as well. This is what a scumbag is. Dong Guangli muttered to herself, seemingly to be pondering, but in actuality, she was telling Wei Chang the question. After receiving Little Honorable's question, Wei Chang stood up and shouted out towards everyone, "What is there to be happy when we part?" Next sentence. It has to be different from the rest. Lai Gu rubbed onto his temples with both of his hands, feeling that his IQ was not online. Zhu Tian had a calm expression on his face, but his eyes were filled with confusion. Recently, Zhu Tian had started working at Zhejiang University as a hypnosis professor. Meanwhile, Zhu Tian himself was also studying some culture, and recently, he had been memorizing 300 nursery rhymes. He had yet to come into contact with such a profound poem. Green and Red Brothers. Spring sleep without knowing dawn is still able to do it twice, but the rest of its IQ is not enough. Death Mage. It is still able to do some fishing and gambling. A large group of men who are capable of destroying the world can only rely on his wives. After all, Yihua's subordinates' culture is not enough, and these women's knowledge is still not enough. Sun Fang, do you have an answer? Wei Chang asked hurriedly. Just now, Sun Fang had answered one question, and Little Honorable was extremely satisfied. Sun Fang wrinkled her brows as her brain spun frantically. How can I be different from everyone else? The three celebrities were also thinking anxiously. After waiting for 1 minute, there was still no answer. This caused Wei Chang to become anxious. At this scene, Chu Bai revealed out a confident smile as he waved his folding fan and said, "Ollie, after thinking for so long, do you have an answer?" Dong Huangli pressed onto her lips and snorted, "You, don't look down on Ollie, wait a moment. Uncle Wei, hurry up, Ollie is going to lose. If I lose, I will lose Daddy's face, Daddy will fly into a rage." Wei Chang's head was about to explode. If his honor were to find out about this matter, even Little Honorable would not be able to protect his honor. If his honor were to really fly into a rage, everyone would definitely be scolded. I got it. Tang Wei's beautiful eyes shone. Wei Chang became happy. Tang Wei smiled faintly, what is there to be happy when we part? I know Pegasus Meteor Fist. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.